Yes.
The lead Spring Army sends its regards.
Hello, everyone. I'm the Enforcer, and I'm accompanied by Enforcer Matt.
And good evening, folks. It's Enforcer Matt, and welcome back to day 1359 of the War News stream. And we have wild news coming out today. We have heard U.S. officials have declared a military operation against Venezuela. We've also seen that Ukraine launched a massive Flamingo missile attack at Russia, devastating a port. And we've also seen that a Russian ship was spotted near the Hawaiian coast by the U.S. Coast Guard. And we have all that and more today, and it's good to see you all once again.
And of course, folks, we're going to be covering the news of the past 24 hours from around the world, as we have been able to hear further and significant developments from the entirety of the globe over the course of the day. The Ukrainian armed forces conducted a deadly blow to the Russian Federation's major port of Novorossiysk overnight, with a load of critical port facilities meeting their end over the course of the night, including the fact that for the first time ever, the Ukrainian armed forces used the Flamingo cruise missile en masse to conduct the attacks that were seen at Novorossiysk overnight, along with multiple other locations in the Russian Federation. Just to name a few of the places or locations that were destroyed within the port of Novorossiysk, it included the entire air defense network, the port's oil facilities, the port's oil loading piers, the port's barracks, along with multiple other critical facilities vital to the functions of the port of Novorossiysk. As of today, the port of Novorossiysk appears to largely be inoperable and also vulnerable to further attacks by Ukrainian armed forces due to the complete lack of any air defense network due to the Ukrainian armed forces destroying that air defense network over the course of just the past few hours. Meanwhile, the Russian Federation has also seen that Ukraine has laid to waste many other key refineries and installations throughout the entirety of the occupied territories of Ukraine and the Russian Federation at large, including several refineries within the area of mainland Russia and also just inside of the region just west or east of Novorossiysk, near to the area of Krasnodar Krai. Meanwhile, the United States of America has now announced a military operation, Operation Spear, against the Republic of Venezuela here at this very moment today. today. In the meantime, the United States did conduct another strike on another narco-terrorist vessel near to the coast, while at the same time, Venezuela is calling on the United Nations to denounce the United States of America for its continued actions within the region. The Republic of Colombia is also proposing the Gran Colombia Initiative, which would see Colombia, Venezuela, Panama, and Ecuador united under a singular unitary government, much like the European Union, and in response to the United States' actions within the area. Meanwhile, the USS Gerald R. Ford is within the area, just outside of the island chains to the east of the Caribbean, and generally inside of the Atlantic at this moment, but it is within strike range of Venezuela at this very time. U.S. warships are sailing wildly close to the Venezuelan coastline, 50 miles off the coast, and we have also seen that the United States Marine Corps' F-35 Lightnings are continuing to conduct combat air patrols within the entirety of the region. Meanwhile, in East Asia, we have been able to hear, or generally within the Pacific, that a Russian vessel has come incredibly close to the island of Oahu and Honolulu over the course of the day, with the United States Coast Guard launching a response to the vessel's close proximity to the Hawaiian Islands. And outside of that, the United States of America has kept a large force posturing within the South China Sea as the USS Nimitz is continuing a show of force within the area. Meanwhile, China has threatened Japan today over the possible involvement of the Japanese and the defense of Taiwan if China was to attempt a war against the country. Meanwhile, India and Pakistan are still gearing up for war, with the Indians now declaring that their message is going to be clear about the attack in New Delhi, and everyone around the world will know not to mess with India. We largely believe that that is a general warning that military actions will resume against the Islamic Republic of Pakistan here within the very near future. We've also been able to hear that Pakistan has responded they are prepared for a two-front war with Afghanistan and India simultaneously. The Ukrainian armed forces have also conducted significant defenses today against the Russian Federation's armed forces, inflicting large losses and also maintaining their hold on Pokrovsk over the course of the day, while also stopping Russian offensives in most other directions. Germany has also announced mass conscription as of today, well, generally the beginning of mobilization, as they are now going to be calling to order all 18-year-old men within the country to be medically examined to see if they are fit for military service, while at the same time, Poland is heavily considering the implementation of mass conscription across the nation in preparation for a possible war with the Russian Federation. And that is just the largest topics of the news tonight. There are a load of other topics that we have to cover along with those. But suffice to say...
Honestly, one of the biggest ones, though, never would have thought of you to see it, by the way. I'm being a little bit facetious there, but a special military operation against Venezuela by the United States, kind of wild. Not technically a war. They're not calling it that. They're calling it an operation that they declared today, so that's kind of wild to see that.
Kind of wild. I never thought we would see in this timeline a special military operation, an SMO, conducted by the United States of America, but it appears that we are in that timeline now. But of course, folks, we are going to be covering every single story that we have just talked about and a load of other smaller ones throughout the course of the night. Of course, starting with our largest stories first and working our way on down into the smaller stories of the night. And of course, starting with our largest story of the day, we are going to be moving directly into the Russian Federation and covering the significant attacks that have been conducted by the armed forces of Ukraine overnight. These are what we can only describe as the largest attacks seen over the duration of the entire war that just happened several hours ago. In short, the Ukrainian armed forces conducted a drone and missile attack against the Russian Federation. And you heard that correctly, it was a drone and missile attack, the first of its type that has ever been conducted by Ukraine, that included not only Ukrainian long-range drones, but also large-caliber missiles in the form of the Flamingo cruise missile. Tonight, we have official confirmation published in footage by the Ukrainian government and the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense confirming that Flamingo cruise missiles were fired en masse at the Russian Federation by transport-erector launchers on the ground within a central area of Ukraine. The Ukrainians did publish the footage, and I'll be showing you all that footage proudly right here. This is the first confirmed combat use of Flamingo cruise missiles, plural, that has ever been seen in the war. Here's the clip. And right there in the distance, there goes the first Flamingo.
Listen to that sound.
That thing has a roar. Here goes the second Flamingo. And the third.
That's some serious business, honestly. Impressive to see them launching.
I mean, absolutely insane, honestly. And here's the fourth. sound that y'all are hearing right there actually is not the Flamingo cruise missile. It is actually the rocket booster that's attached to each of them to assist them in their launch. Now, something else that's incredibly interesting here, at least when we watch the second launch, you can actually see one of the Flamingos sitting right there idly waiting for its time to launch from this TEL battery that's sitting there in the middle of this field. And it is a wild sight to see. Flamingo cruise missiles, mind you all, they are twice as large as a Tomahawk cruise missile, and they are being fired in somewhat larger numbers. From what we know, this was all the Flamingo cruise missiles that were fired overnight. The first volley that's ever been fired at Russia officially. And from what we can count, there were about 4 or 5 Flamingo cruise missiles that were launched into the Russian Federation. We also have gotten the reports back on how many of these successfully made it to their target. And believe it or not, folks, this is actually unbelievable for the size of the missile that's involved here, but 4 out of 5 of the Flamingo cruise missiles that were fired made it to their target. Only one of them was shot down over the city of Oryol. The rest were able to land successfully on their targets, and from what we understand, according to the Ukrainians, 1 slammed into Berdyansk, 2 hit targets within Crimea, and the 4th one hit its target within the port of Novorossiysk. They didn't specify...
And also, let me get this right real quick. These things carry a 1-ton warhead each. So if 4 of them made it through, that means Ukraine put 4 tons of munitions between 4 different cruise missiles on target in one strike. That's insane.
That is 8,000 pounds of explosive mass that was just flung at the Russians. To put this into perspective for everyone, your average long-range Ukrainian drone, like a Lyudy-2, which is the most commonly used, it only is able to carry about 100 pounds of explosives on board, meaning that a single Flamingo cruise missile has the same damage ability as 20 Lyudys strapped together. To give you all a concept of how much damage a single one of these missiles can inflict. It is a huge step up. This is an insane step up, as a matter of fact, in terms of Ukraine's abilities to inflict damage on the Russian Federation with their strikes. And considering that 80% of them made it through Russian air defense, this also means that their success rate in getting that damage inflicted on the Russians successfully is wildly high. A 20% interception rate, mind you all, for the Russian Federation against a conventional missile, which is what their air defense systems are actually designed to do, is incredibly abysmal as well. And it becomes even funnier when we start to deduce what we believe the Ukrainians actually ended up hitting, at least within the port of Novorossiysk, with the Flamingo. So, let us move from this clip here, but really quickly before we go, I do want y'all to hear the launch of a Flamingo again, because that rocket-assisted takeoff is unbelievably powerful sounding. So let's listen to it again. I mean, that is quite powerful sounding. That really is. But let's move on down to the main target of the day. We're going to skip Berdyansk for now, and also we haven't been able to get video or picture evidence, just to tell you all up front, of the Flamingo impacts that happened inside of Crimea yet. That footage will mostly be coming out within the next 24 to 48 hours, I would assume, so hopefully we'll be able to show that tomorrow or the next day. But moving on down to the attacks that we can confirm at the moment, we are going to be moving down to the port of Novorossiysk. The port of Novorossiysk is one of the most important ports within the Russian Federation in the current day and age. The Russian Federation has a very limited number of ports that they can use to be able to export their oils around the world, if they even can find any customers to buy them at this point. And also, the port of Novorossiysk is wildly important due to the fact that the last remaining elements of the Russian Black Sea Fleet are within the port of Novorossiysk, specifically within the Vostochny Rayon, which you can see right here. Every single ship that has not been destroyed by the Ukrainian armed forces yet at sea is currently moored within this port. Very rarely do they go out to sea, and when they go out to sea, it's only to conduct a missile attack against the state of Ukraine, and then they rapidly retreat right back into the Vostochny Rayon with a large series of nets and buoys at the only entrance to the Vostochny, trying to protect the ships from possible Ukrainian naval drone attacks or air attacks. Doesn't appear that that's going to be really helpful here in the future, because further on away from the Vostochny Rayon are a large amount of significant targets that the Ukrainians have been attempting to attack and have successfully hit a couple of times over the course of the war, including these larger industries that are along the direct port area, and also the fuel storage facilities, which are found centrally within the port, right here near to the major rail yards that are also directly at the harbor front. Not only that, we also know further on down the port is a large amount of military assets, to put it mildly. This is the coastal defense base of the Russian Federation's armed forces, which are a part of the Russian army, which is charged with the responsibility of protecting the port from any sort of air-based attacks. It is based directly at the mouth of the Novorossiysk Bay, and it is considered to be the very first and last line of defense for Russian air defense within the general area. Now, you know something that's a little bit interesting, folks, is that in NATO, we have this cool tactic that we call the shoot and scoot. Shoot and scoots are conducted by basically everything that has wheels, from self-propelled guns that fire artillery shells at enemy infantry to air-based defense systems like the Patriot. The concept behind shoot and scoot is that your system, whether it's an artillery piece or an air defense system, drives to a pre-prepared location, sets up, waits to engage the enemy, then fires at them, and then you pack everything up and you drive it on down the road about 20 miles away and then set it up again. It makes it a lot more difficult for enemy forces to be able to figure out where your air defense and artillery units are to be able to target them and destroy them. Now, in the Russians, they have something called shoot and sit. This is a really revolutionary tactic because it makes the whole process a lot easier. Instead of packing up the air defense system every single time it fires, what they do is that they just fire the air defense system and then they sit there for about 3 years. And that's what the Russians have been doing at Novorossiysk the whole war. Right down here at the mouth of Novorossiysk Bay is the Russian Coastal Defense Battery. And right in the middle of the Russian Coastal Defense Battery is the entire S-300 and S-400 air defense system that has been sitting in this very same spot for 3 years. They have not moved once. You can literally see everything needed to operate this air defense system in this one area. Look, there's the targeting radar, there's the launchers, there's the acquisition radar. It's all here in one spot. One single large explosive, about 2,000 pounds in size, could potentially knock out the entire air defense system for the port of Novorossiysk. Because mind you all, this is the only S-300 and S-400 air defense battery within the entirety of the port of Novorossiysk. Not only that, it's in the middle of the coastal defense's base. All of the barracks for the soldiers are also here as well, directly north of this air defense system. So if this got hit, the entire air defense network, at least the conventional form that's not machine gun based, goes down for the whole port. And you wouldn't believe it, folks, the Flamingo cruise missile slammed right into that and blew it up overnight. So let me go show you all the clips of all that happened down here at the mouth of Novorossiysk Bay, because it is legendary. So let me show you all the actual hit of the Flamingo cruise missile. This is going to be our first clip within the 4 videos that we have showing the attack in real time, generally, of what happened after the Flamingo hit the air defense battery. So here's our first clip. And that's the mushroom cloud.
Wow. Oh my God. That is huge. That's the Flamingo 1-ton explosion mixed with also all the air defense interceptors that were struck as well.
From what we know, it generally doesn't even include the air defense interceptors yet at this point. This is just the initial explosion of the Flamingo, and maybe a flash off here or there from a missile or two, but there are some larger explosions that happen later, actually.
Yeah, that's wild right there. That the sheer smoke plume from that is crazy. Also, the flashpoint is crazy too, right off the explosion.
Right, like, no joke, man. Like, this thing, it's like they practically nuked the air defense battery at Novorossiysk.
And it's a steady fire too. It's not really a flash. It's more like a continuous fire.
It's a roaring pyre down there. Oh my God! Dude, did you see that?
Had to be an air defense missile going off secondarily. That had to be.
So the first mushroom cloud, folks, was made by the Flamingo. This, whatever that is right there, that's a secondary explosion, most likely of the S-300's air defense missiles inside of the launchers that just happened right there, or some other munition that was housed at this facility. But it literally went off like a nuclear bomb. It lit up the entire camera. Watch this again. Whatever that was, it's got the power of the sun within it nearly, because it turned everything to daylight down here in this part of the port. But moving on from that clip and on into our next one, we also have another angle of this explosion. Here it is.
Oh, fireworks too. What? It's some sparkling going off the side of it.
I'm not gonna lie, man, the Flamingo is actually pretty splendid looking when it explodes. It's like a free fireworks show down there.
That is wild. That's what a 1-ton explosion looks like from a cruise missile. That's wild.
You know,
Does Russia even have a missile that has a 1-ton payload on it? Do they even use one like that?
the Russians, I think the largest that their warheads get for their cruise missiles is about 1,000 pounds. But generally, one thing I do have to put this into perspective, though, is that the bombs the Israelis were using in the Gaza Strip were about 2,000 pounds each. So for the Israelis, this is another day. But for the Russians and the Ukrainians, this is like dropping a small nuclear bomb on someone, dropping a 2,000-pound bomb on them. So you can generally tell that in the clips. The explosive mass is unbelievable. We also were able to see some other interesting stuff as well. Let's take a look at this. Oh, actually, that's a duplicate clip. Let me make sure to remove that there. But let me make sure to show you all this right here. Just to once again reiterate this for everyone. From the geolocated view that we have, and I'll also show you all where the footage was filmed. It was actually filmed from this apartment building right here. This one. It's looking directly south, past the Lenta store, which you can see. And let me make sure to show that to you all here really quickly again in this first clip that showed the mushroom cloud rising. You can see him looking down, and right there, that's the Lenta store. Right there. It's this one. You can actually see the giant Lenta sign if we drop down on Street View. Right there. So they were looking right over the store and right at the air defense battery, which is literally just south of the Lenta store. So the footage that we were seeing was filmed either from this building here, this one, or this one. We're not exactly sure which, but it looks to be from this general area looking directly south. So we can confirm that that S-300 battery was the direct target that was hit by the Flamingo, and it appears to have been absolutely destroyed. We are also assuming that the secondary explosions of the S-300 missiles within the launchers also led to catastrophic damage and the destruction of the nearby barracks that the Russian soldiers who operate the air defense systems generally live out of for the past 3 years. So it looks like, at least for now, the entire air defense system in Novorossiysk has disappeared quite literally in a flash. But moving further on up into the port, because y'all thought that was the only damage, there was a lot more. After the air defense systems went down, the attacks against the actual port itself became a lot easier for the Ukrainians, and they used generally Ukrainian long-range drones to be able to conduct the rest of the attacks that were seen within the northern part of the port. But before we talk about all of those attacks, the Ukrainians did confirm that they used Flamingos today en masse to be able to successfully strike and destroy Russian targets throughout the country. And a lot of people are talking about whether or not the Ukrainians even need Tomahawks at this point, considering that the Flamingos appear to be wildly successful and efficient. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so let's compare real quick. Once again, the poll question says, Ukraine confirms it used Flamingo missiles to strike Russia and Crimea today, and obviously Novorossiysk was hammered by Flamingo missiles in these massive 1-ton explosions, and are Tomahawks still needed? And it looks like 48% of the audience said yes, Tomahawks are better and also still needed, while 30% said Ukraine needs everything they can get, regardless of what the weapon is, and 14% said no, Tomahawks are not needed and they're not that better than a Flamingo. So to go over this and compare the two weapons really quick, not to make this too long of a rabbit hole, but to give y'all some basic specs real quick, the Flamingo allegedly has a 3,000 kilometer range on it compared to a Tomahawk, which has about a 1,000 to 1,600 kilometer range. So Ukraine's claiming it's got a much longer range on it, and also they're saying it has a much larger warhead too, because the Ukrainians say it can carry up to 1,150 kilograms, which is about a ton, and the Tomahawk carries about 450 kilograms, but it varies by the variant of Tomahawk. So the one main difference between a Flamingo and a Tomahawk missile, other than the payload capacity, is mainly the targeting capabilities. Based on what we know so far, it looks like the Tomahawk has a more potent targeting system on board. But we don't know a whole bunch about the Flamingo just yet. The Flamingo allegedly uses GPS to guide itself. The Tomahawk, on the other hand, it uses a combination of TERCOM, GPS, also data links, and in-flight retargeting, which I don't think the Flamingo has, if I'm not mistaken about that. But we don't have all the details just yet about all the specs on the Flamingo. But basically, bottom line is this. Ukraine domestically produces the Flamingo. They're able to rapidly produce them and at a much cheaper cost. cost, which is monumental for Ukraine. It allows them to be self-sufficient and also produce as many that's needed at a much lower cost, which is obviously very beneficial. So the U.S. does not appear to be wanting to supply the Tomahawk missile to Ukraine, so Flamingo appears to be their best bet. Me personally, I would say the Tomahawks are not really needed at this point. If Ukraine can get them, great, but they're not essential. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to be with a 47%. And while the Flamingo is able to do the job, it really is the fact that providing Flamingos, the Ukrainians using Flamingos alone, then adding Tomahawks into the equation is pretty much a firepower multiplier for the Ukrainians at any given moment in time, because instead of having to rely entirely on their domestic production of domestically made cruise missiles, which are the Flamingos, they will also be able to count on the US-made Tomahawks to be able to give them extra available cruise missiles at any given moment. Not only that, but like Enforcer Matt was pointing out, the targeting systems, from what we know about the Flamingo, are more crude within the Flamingo cruise missile than that of the Tomahawk. The Tomahawk has triple and quadruple redundancies built in to ensure that the targeting of the missile is as accurate as it can be. In short, a Tomahawk will never miss. A Flamingo cruise missile may be able to miss, and eventually may become predictable enough for the Russian Federation to start intercepting a larger number of the missiles, considering that they have no in-flight redirecting that can be conducted by the missile, and the missile would still be able to stay on track to its target, even after redirecting itself slightly in flight to become more difficult to intercept. For these reasons, it would be good to provide the Ukrainians with the Tomahawk cruise missile, but at the same time, the Tomahawk is not going to be giving them any additional abilities that they do not already possess currently with the Flamingo. It's only going to be allowing the Ukrainians to have several more missiles available at any given moment, and also have missiles that generally will always hit their target, instead of the Flamingo, which may eventually start to miss its target, or become predictable enough that it might end up getting shot down in larger numbers. Still, at the moment.
But get this. But get this though, Enforcer, on the targeting issue here, because right now that's the main complaint or the main issue for most people is how accurate is the Flamingo, because there is not a wide variety of data to really prove that the Flamingo is truly accurate all the time. But Ukraine is claiming that it has a 14-meter CEP accuracy rate. Meanwhile, the Tomahawk has about a 10-15 meter CEP. So Ukraine's at least claiming that it's on par with the Tomahawk, but like you mentioned, though, the Tomahawk has a lot of other redundancies, so if one targeting system on the Flamingo goes out, that could be detrimental. If one goes out on the Tomahawk, it can simply revert to the other methods it has at its disposal to target the missile to the actual target itself. So it seems to me like the Tomahawk has a lot of redundancies, but in the war, though, because obviously Ukraine's fighting an active war, it's better to have the best thing you have at your disposal, which is the Flamingo, instead of trying to focus on having a million different redundancies, at least in my opinion.
And that is true. And also, folks, by the way, just to share this with all of y'all, if the United States goes to war, a lot of our weapon systems, like the Tomahawk, which are fine-tuned scalpel-like precision weapons, are going to be simplified for mass production purposes. That has happened to quite literally every single weapon in human history, especially in industrialized human history, is that whenever a war breaks out, there is a lot of streamlining that is done to make it as easy, feasible, and cheap to mass produce these sorts of weapon systems. So while the Tomahawk is a really fine-tuned missile right now, if the United States entered a long and protracted war with a larger adversary like the Chinese, it's highly likely that a large amount of our Tomahawks would most likely turn into Flamingos, at least with the amount of redundancies that would be built in. Instead of having 4 redundancies, there would only be maybe 1 or no redundancies built into the Tomahawk to try and make them as cheap as possible. That's also why, folks, just to share this with you all, the Tomahawk is a lot more expensive than the Flamingo per unit. The United States is having to pay the manufacturers of the Tomahawk, which is the Raytheon Corporation, a large amount of money for the proprietary technology that was built into the targeting and computer systems of the Tomahawk. It's not the actual missile itself that costs a lot of money, nor the warhead. It is the computer and targeting systems on board these missiles that cost exorbitant amounts of money. And funnily enough, it's the same story with our aircraft and ships as well. The F-35 could be made a whole lot cheaper if its computer systems and targeting information was greatly simplified, along with other avionics, including the radar. we could make an F-35 as cheap as we wanted to if we start to strip everything out of the inside of it and replace it with a lot simpler components and machinery. But at that point, we are sacrificing everything that makes the F-35 a competent and deadly fighter aircraft. That's generally why, here in America, things cost a great deal. Because on the surface of it, you look at this F-35 and you go, how in the world can it be that expensive? And then you look at a Chinese J-20 and you hear that the thing costs about, I think it's something like 60% the cost of an F-22 or an F-35, and then they go, wow, look at that, it's so cheap. It's because the Chinese are cheaping out on the things you can't see, like the radars and the computers inside of the aircraft, which are probably a lot more simpler than those found here within the United States of America. That's generally how it works, and that's also why it's really hard for a lot of people to understand why in the world American weapons cost so much. It's because it's costing a lot because the components that you can't see are far greater in quality and their abilities than anything found overseas. But still, moving on.
And one other thing I want to point out real quick, by the way, because we don't know about the internals of the Flamingo. We're simply going off of open source reporting and also what we've heard from various different officials. It is possible, because this is something that people have pointed out in the past, it is possible that maybe the U.S. has provided some certain systems to be used in the Flamingo that is manufactured by American defense companies, maybe under the table. That is also possible as well. So we're being told certain things, like, for example, we're being told that allegedly the Flamingo only has GPS guidance in it, but it could have more than that, where we might not simply even know about it. It could be actually equipped with it. You never know.
That is true. It may possibly be equipped. We are just going off of public information and reasonable deduction to come up with the abilities of Flamingo at the moment, because its exact abilities are classified. So it's entirely possible it may have a couple of redundancies built within it that we really don't know about. I also saw someone say here really quickly, and I think this is a really interesting point. Someone said, well, the Russians have a horrid air defense system, so why in the world does the Tomahawk even need for redundancies, considering that it was originally designed to go up against the Soviets? Well, I'll tell you why. America has a fear of losing. In America, losing is equivalent to practically being dead already. You can look at that in anything, in our sports, in everything. Losing is a huge fear of everyone. So it's also a huge fear of the U.S. military. What if we design a missile that just isn't good enough? The U.S. military, by the way, just to tell you all this, they believe, at least for strategic purposes, every single bit of propaganda that an enemy country puts out. So when the Chinese say that the J-20 can do a 720-degree flip like Tony Hawk in flight, we actually believe that. And then we go to work putting hundreds of billions of dollars usually into creating an aircraft that actually can do a 780-degree flip like Tony Hawk in air and beat the Chinese by their own propaganda standards. We have been doing that for decades because the fear is, what if that propaganda is not just propaganda trying to gas up our enemy and make them seem incredibly scary? What if it's true? What if it's actually correct and accurate information, and our aircraft are going to be wiped because the Chinese aircraft are actually better? So we over-engineer and over-design everything within the U.S. Armed Forces, and generally within the West as a whole. Our allies do this as well, to where if the propaganda is even true, it doesn't matter, because our aircraft are still going to outperform the propaganda values that the Chinese and the Russians put out about their weapon systems. That's also why our stuff is so expensive. That's also why, just to put this out there, the F-15 is still undefeated in combat to this day, and it's been around for about 50 years, and we are still producing improved and upgraded variants of the F-15 because we over-designed and over-engineered this thing to meet the propaganda values and information that we had at the time about the MiG-25 Foxbat. So this is probably the best example that we have of over-engineering, because this story is legendary about the F-15 and why it was even made in the first place as a competitor to the MiG-25. But moving on from that, and back into the port of Novorossiysk and the attacks that we saw within that area, it's now time for us to move on up to Novorossiysk, because now, in the series of events, the Russian air defenses around the port of Novorossiysk are completely gone at this point of the story. So now the Ukrainian long-range drones are coming in, and they're facing practically no resistance in their ability to attack the actual port. So now, let's go through the news. First off, we were able to see that the oil depot was obliterated by a Ukrainian drone attack. You can see the fire raging right there. Then we were able to see another clip further on up. also showing us the fires of hell opening up, either from the air defense battery or one of the direct hits on the port. It does seem that the Ukrainians were able to land some very significant hits, and it is believed that this picture is of the Russian oil depot facilities within the central area of the port of Novorossiysk, which are about around right here. That is what we're actually believing we're looking at the moment, due to these lower level Khrushchevkas, which we can see in the view, along with the trees, which would heavily suggest that that picture was taken somewhere here in the western side of the city, looking over these Khrushchevkas and directly to the oil loading facility. That's at least what's believed right now. Then we also saw additional clips of the port cooking as well. Once more, we can see that here, and it does seem that the port of Novorossiysk is gone, generally, at least from this attack. It has been practically destroyed and laid to waste. We also then saw another clip of the major explosion, which is a duplicate once more, which we will be deleting. Still, the port of Novorossiysk was majorly hit in this attack. It is the largest attack that we have ever seen against the port of Novorossiysk so far, and it is probably one of the most devastating attacks that we've also seen against a port, considering that the entire city's air defense network was also destroyed in the midst of this attack. Moving on out of Novorossiysk, though, y'all would think that the story would have ended there for the night, but y'all would be wrong, and I would be wrong as well. The story continues deep into the Russian Federation about the attacks and the damage that was caused overnight. Within the area of Krasnodar Krai, near to the city of Krasnodar, we were able to see air defense active within the area in attempting to shoot down the incoming air targets, and we also were able to see that the refinery at Ilsky, just to the west of the city of Krasnodar, was directly hit by Ukrainian long-range drones over the course of the night. We can see
they got the spotlights back out again. They're trying to find the drones.
Ooh.
Sounds like the drone found them.
Oh, I saw a little flash over the buildings.
Oh, they want an interceptor.
Oh. Oh, we can finally hear it.
What?
You bet. And the car alarms are going off. Oh, goody. Also, I don't know what kind of beater that is right down there in the street, but that thing looks pretty rough off. Still, the Ilsky refinery was directly hit from what we understand, which is directly to the east of the city of Ilsky and getting somewhat close to the major city of Krasnodar. To try and show y'all exactly where this was, here is the Ilsky refinery right here, which is the one that we are hearing at the moment, was directly targeted by the Ukrainian drones. And this isn't that far from Novorossiysk, by the way. This is only about 39 miles from the center of Novorossiysk, so not that far away. Moving on out of the southern area of Russia, it's now time for us to migrate further on north, and towards the city of Berdyansk, because we also were able to hear of more explosions within the area of Berdyansk, with the reported claim, at least by the Ukrainians at the moment, that a Flamingo missile was involved in the attack against Berdyansk. That's the only proof that we have at the moment of the Berdyansk attack. We did get to see that there was air defense fire within the area, a lot like last night, but once again, we do not have any actual video of the explosion. We only have the audio recording of the explosion in Berdyansk. Further on north and in the occupied city of Donetsk, there were also further attacks conducted by the Ukrainians in what has been described by observers as a drone swarm that attacked the city at one time and apparently inflicted severe power outages throughout large parts of the occupied city of Donetsk, including reports of the partial blackouts and video confirming that most lights within the city were completely knocked out by the Ukrainians. So I guess, in a literal sense, the Ukrainians knocked their lights out.
The Cub Cadet, the lawnmower's coming in.
Man, oh, and there it is, I think. Oh, I don't know. Actually, that might have been the glare off of an electrical line or something else. Oh, and there's the hit. Oh! Ooh, dang, that sounds loud.
Oh, man, that's a shame.
Man, what a shame. What a shame. Oh, by the way, a little update from yesterday's news. Y'all remember the Orsk refinery getting hit in the city of Orsk? Well, the Russians confirmed that the entire refinery is now being shut down today due to the damage that was caused yesterday. So the damage was significant enough. The refinery has completely stopped operations as of today and will most likely be down and out for several weeks or months while the Russians try and scrounge up the money to be able to effect the repairs and then effect the repairs after they find the money. Moving further on north, and gone into the wonderful and incredible area of the city of Nizhnekamsk, we also were able to confirm another Ukrainian attack deep within the Russian Federation on the Nizhnekamsk refinery, which you can see right here. The Nizhnekamsk refinery was directly hit by Ukrainian drones, and the fire was filmed right here.
You think we'll be out of a job? I think we'll be out today, blad. Go find a new job. Go get rubles.
And I have to say, a big shout out to the Russians for creating the most ingenious watermark I've seen ever, which appears to be a ball of tin foil that's somewhat translucent. Really an incredible watermark right there.
I thought it was like the plume of an atomic bomb explosion or something for a second.
No, it looks like a tinfoil ball to me.
Very ingenious. It's resistant to heat, you know.
Man, it's truly incredible. Revolutionary in design. Moving on from that clip, though, out of the area of Nizhnekamsk, it's now time for us to move a little bit on closer to the Russian border, because this is where we saw the singular Flamingo cruise missile get shot down, was directly over the city of Oryol. So here's the clip of that shoot down right here.
Okay, so we got confirmation that the debris here was from a Flamingo?
Yes.
Okay, that explains it, because earlier when I was looking at this video, I could not figure out for the life of me what created this type of effect, because we've never seen debris quite like that before. So I guess that would make sense. The 1-ton Flamingo would cause something this dispersed. But yeah, that's remarkable, though. That's literally a debris situation, like Russia likes to call it.
Yeah, it is. It is quite interesting. As apparently, stars are falling on Oryol in Russia, like stars fell in Alabama. But still, it is a little bit interesting to note that this video started right after the Flamingo was shot down, correction there, and it did leave an incredibly large debris field behind. Now, interestingly enough, we've actually seen an analogous debris field during the Iran-Israel 12-day war, when the Israelis would shoot down Iranian ballistic and cruise missiles that were targeting the state of Israel. Similar debris fields were seen dozens of times during that conflict, so that would heavily suggest that a cruise missile in the form of a Flamingo was directly shot down over the city of Oryol, and the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense also reported that this was the only Flamingo that was successfully shot down, while the other 4 were able to make it to their targets. So the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense making that claim also confirms that this is footage of the only Flamingo cruise missile that was shot down in tonight's attack. The Russians are not having a great day once again. That's a fairly common statement here on the channel, but they're never having a good day these days, I don't think. They're always having a miserable and terrible day, and the Russian Federation within Moscow is continuing to really reflect on having terrible days, because in the midst of everything that's happening at Novorossiysk and the refineries, the Russians rolled out a brand new humanoid robot powered by AI, and y'all all know that the Russians are truly masters of artificial intelligence, because any intelligence in Russia is only artificial and is not real. It's practically service level. So they did roll out this little robot in the midst of the attacks, and it was really impressive. I gotta say, folks, the Terminator is most likely coming from Russia. Let me show you this little clip here. Look at it go.
Oh, look. It's walking, or at least it's marching in place. Oh, they're going to conscript the robot, too, for the front lines, I guess. They're getting really desperate.
Man, look at him go. Walking.
That is creepy, honestly. What is that face?
Man, I don't know. Oh, it's getting a little drunk. Man, it's walking like an average Russian. Oh, my God.
It's got the vodka syndrome. It's powered by vodka.
Bruh, you know what they did, man? They taught this thing how to walk by making it watch films of gopniks walking around the city after going to the liquor store. That's where it learned how to walk. We can see it wave to the crowd. Oh my goodness, it's walking like the former president. Oh my God. And it went down. Oh my God.
Oh, wow. They just had to hit the kill switch on it, too. Look at that. Look at this creepy thing. Picking him up like a Russian soldier. Oh, no, not the curtain. They pulled out the curtain.
Why is it grimacing, though?
Yeah, that's creepy.
This thing is just wildly creepy. And then they come out.
They're failing with the curtain, too.
That thing is so weird.
I don't like that thing at all right there. I don't like that.
Man, I'm not going to lie, folks. That thing is rough. But moving on from that, we also saw another one today, too. And this one's apparently a part of the droid attack on the Wookiees. It was seen within the Russian Ministry of Defense's headquarters, from what we understand, wandering around. So let's take a little gander at this.
Oh yeah, look at that. We got the faceless robot right here. Look at that thing. That's why do you have like carrying a rifle? Like that's and they got it walking through where again?
Apparently, this is the Ministry of Defense.
Interesting. Fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating. Matt, that you were just joking about that last robot getting conscripted. Well. This one was. Like, this one actually has a rifle and a uniform. So I got to be honest with you all here. This one's looking like it's already in the armed forces, and honestly, it's kind of like walking like a guy who's in the armed forces. Look at him.
It's got like claws for feet, and it's got like a clothes hanger for a face.
Man, this thing's got bird feet. Man, this thing's got chicken feet.
Hey, call this thing the Birdman. Stop playing with my name.
Dude, whenever this AI doesn't go over the top, you go, "What are you, part chicken?" And it's honestly true because it's got chicken feet for feet, man. Man, oh my god, this is honestly the stupidest thing. Because when you think about it, folks, if that rifle is loaded, all it takes is some guy walking up to that thing and taking the rifle out of its hands, and you can take over the Ministry of Defense today. Like right now, this thing is literally the break in case of an emergency rifle case, walking around the building, waiting for someone to just snatch the rifle clean off of it. I'm sure the magazine is not loaded, but that would be absolutely insane if it was, because anyone could take the gun. And also, by the way, a big shout out to Jakob Bryan, if I'm saying that correctly, because he is flagging everyone that's sitting in a computer over there. I mean, he's aiming the gun right at their heads.
Why is this giving off like auction vibes or something like that? Why are they set up like they're bidding on the robot or something from the sidelines? What kind of Ministry of Defense setup is this? They got people in the hallways working on computers.
I guess I don't know, but
I guess they're bidding on the robot. They're placing bets on it. They're in here gambling or something.
Bro, they're on that gamble craze like everyone else in America at this point. But moving on out of Moscow, it appears that they didn't really get any wins in Moscow today with the artificial intelligence robots either, with one falling on stage and then grimacing like it's from a horror movie, and then the other one walking through the MOD with a Kalashnikov. So generally not a good day for them. And the day got worse. They also lost an Su-30 within the area of Karelia, and both pilots of the Su-30 were killed. This report here says it's an Su-27, but most Su-27s do not have a tandem cockpit. It's actually the Su-30 SM, like this report here states, that has a tandem cockpit for both pilots to be killed in. And from what we understand, it was near to the Petrozavodsk International Airport at Petrozavodsk within the general Karelia region. So it does appear the Russians also lost an Su-30 airframe today and 2 pilots. So the day was terrible for the Russians in general, talking about the attacks in the occupied territories, Novorossiysk, the refineries, the AI bot fails in Moscow, and also the crash of the Su-30 up near Karelia. So bad day in general for them. But it seems like things are going to be getting a little better for them, folks. Just a little bit better. Because there has been good news for them today. They will survive the war, at least for another day. They didn't financially collapse today, which is something. And, every day that the Russians aren't financially collapsing, the Russian government is going to call that a blessing. Because at this point, they're literally on the very cliff's edge of just going into the abyss and disappearing really as an economy or a country at this point. But we are going to be moving on out of this news in Europe and Russia for a minute and moving on over into the Americas, because we've got loads and loads of humongous news that came out of the Caribbean today in America's endless pursuit and hunt of Captain Craig Sparrow and his band of 40 thieves. But before we get on all into that, I do want to touch on a little bit of news that we are already running a bowl on at the moment, so we will make sure to get to that before we move on into Captain Craig Sparrow and our hunt in the Caribbean. Inside of the Federal Republic of Germany, they have announced that they are going to be reinstating military conscription nationwide. Today, Germany's ruling coalition will present a draft law introducing a new concept called the conscription when needed, based on a lottery system. So basically the U.S. version of the draft. I'm so sorry to any of our German viewers. That was just completely impossible for me to pronounce. So so I'm very sorry to all of our German viewers. I do not mean to disrespect your language. But under the proposal, all 18-year-olds will undergo a medical assessment with the option extended to women on a voluntary basis. The reform will first affect men born in 2008, who will be required to complete a mandatory medical check. Every male will receive a questionnaire titled Interest in Service, Yes or No, and responding will be obligatory. If there are not enough volunteers, the Bundestag will have the authority to trigger a compulsory draft through a lottery-based system. So you either volunteer for service or you get conscripted, one or the other. But that is coming around the corner. And meanwhile, the Republic of Poland is heavily considering a very similar conscription system to what the Federal Republic of Germany is doing at the moment. As the Brigadier General Rafael Mernik, head of military training at the Polish General Staff, has openly spoken in favor of restoring universal military service. According to him, it not only meets the needs of the armed forces and national defense, but also strengthens the reserve and prepares society for crisis situations, which is a war with Russia. Mernik stresses that demographics and future threats will inevitably push Poland toward the decision. Sooner or later, we will face this choice, the general said. Once again showing that within Polish military and governmental circles, general conscription is also being heavily considered, much like it's being announced within the Federal Republic of Germany over the course of the day. And for that reason, a lot of people have been talking about why the Germans are now announcing the beginning of mass conscription across the Federal Republic. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So it looks like there's about two different camps on this issue right here, two different groups of thought on it. And it looks like 62% said Germany knows that war is imminent, while 29% said that Germany is battling low recruitment, and that's the reason why they're doing this sudden military conscription that they haven't done before, at least for a long time. So me personally, I'm with the 62%. I think Germany knows war is imminent. That's pretty much the only reason you would actually reinstate something like this, is because you believe that war is imminent. Because what this requires basically, it's a little bit different from the U.S. version of the draft, because for one thing, it requires military medicals for all 18-year-olds. That is not required in the United States. The only thing the United States is required is that you sign up for selective service when you turn 18, and then you're in the system. But Germany's going an extra step. They said you need to go ahead and get your military medical at 18 and also sign up for the service as well. That's a little bit different. But nonetheless, it is pretty similar to the U.S. system in a large portion of the ways. So I would say personally, I think Germany's doing it because they know that a war is coming around the corner, Russia's preparing for it, and Germany wants to be ahead of the curve instead of behind the curve if that does happen. So I would say it's necessary. I'm with the majority. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would be with the majority as well. The Germans do know that the war is coming at this point, and they are trying to prepare. So to explain the difference between the German and the American system, they're practically identical, except for this one caveat. In America, everyone that's 18 years old signs up for selective service if you're a male. And then when war comes around, they will draw your lot, usually by last name or by number, and then you'll be conscripted, basically. You'll be drafted. But once you're drafted, that does not mean that you're in the military just yet. Then you go to MEPS, which is the medical examination side of things, and then they find out if you're even medically fit to serve, and if you're not, you're thrown back out, although you were technically drafted. Then later on, the draft requirements may be changed for who is fit for military service, and then they might call up your number again, and you might get drafted again, and then they might say you're cleared for military service, although priorly you were not. The German system instead is doing things head first, really. So they are going to have everyone in the country that's 18 years old right now already go to MEPS and figure out who's medically able to serve or not, or who has what medical conditions to put them in what groups later. So if a conscription requirement is lifted, then they can conscript you later, and they're going to do that up front. So that way, when it comes around to their time, they're just conscripting the people who are already medically cleared for service, and they're completely ignoring the people who are not medically cleared to serve. That's what they're doing. So slightly different, but ends up with the same result generally. So at that moment, it does seem that the Germans do understand that war is coming. We usually see that within Europe, these sorts of systems are implemented or put in place whenever it does appear that war is inevitable, and considering that a lot of countries, including Britain and France, are also considering similar systems, at least mildly, with the Polish heavily considering it, and the Germans announcing that as of today, it's becoming incredibly clear that practically everyone in Europe knows that war is right around the corner and could happen at any moment with the Russian Federation.
I I wonder if it's more of like a mental conditioning sort of thing because it doesn't take too long to process people through, for example, we call it MEPS in the United States, a military entrance and processing station. It's basically a place where they medically check you to make sure you're fit for service. And you go to a military base, there's a doctor on the base there that checks you out. They make you do the duck walk and all this stuff and all this other, things. And also sometimes you take the ASVAB there as well. So it's a whole process, but it doesn't take too long though. So I wonder if Germany is like maybe not able to process people as fast as the United States, or maybe they're doing it just to mentally prepare the young men for service to let them know how real the situation is. I'm not really sure what the deal is because they should be able to process them fast enough. Even if they have to start a draft later when a war is breaking out, they should be able to still handle it, even in that scenario.
I think this is a part of that grand old German efficiency that they talk about. They just want to get it all out of the way so that way they already know who's available and who's not, and they just call them up instantly and they go straight into the service without having to have any additional time for MEPS. So I guess at the moment of crisis, it's kind of cutting down on the amount of time before those soldiers those conscripts are combat ready. Because instead of having to give them that little bit of extra time to go through MEPS and processing, they're pretty much pre-processed. So then they just send them straight into the service with a smaller delay, possibly.
Maybe so. That could be it. Also, by the way, I see a lot of people talking about MEPS and things like that. I actually was going to join the military. I actually ended up going to MEPS myself. So I personally went to the base, the local base, to go to MEPS. For me personally, I actually did not go to a federal building. I see some people say you go to your nearest federal building to do it, but that was not the case for me, at least. I guess it works different for different places, I guess, maybe. But I've only had the experience in Alabama, so maybe somewhere else they do it different.
All right, everyone, step up, step up. We're getting people in the military. But anyways, beyond that, I gotta say this is a fairly interesting move. It is showing that we are getting closer to war at this point because national governments are preparing for this. And I also saw someone say that conscription is wrong. I've seen a couple of people say this in the chat. I'll give you all my opinion on it. Conscription is 100% necessary to the survival of a nation. Just because people do not want to fight for their nation doesn't mean that they don't get to. Because I'll give you all my opinion. In the United States of America, every single citizen that is over the age of 18 that is not a felon gets the right to vote. If you have a right and an ability to be able to vote in your nation to determine its outcome in future, then that also means that you have a responsibility to defend the very nation that you have a say in. That's how I generally think of it. If you were in a country that was a dictatorship or you didn't have any choice in your elected leadership, I would say the conscription is wrong, like in North Korea and Russia. But in this country, you get a say in this government, and for that reason and that reason alone, if you have a say in this government, then you have a responsibility to defend this nation as well as the republic at large. That's how I generally look at it. And of course, that's only in the instance of an emergency, in the outbreak of a major war. I mean, an endless conscription all the time, I think that's completely unnecessary, and I think that the military is much more beneficial as a volunteer-only force because you have people that want to be there. But if a war breaks out that is so large, voluminous, and is inflicting so many casualties on us that we can't work off of a volunteer-only force, then a conscription is necessary and vital to the survival and defense of our nation. If you don't think that if you support Ukraine and their war, but you think that conscription is wrong and no one should be, then you're actually saying that Ukraine should have ceased to exist because most of the Ukrainian military in this current part of the war is conscripted. There's not a lot of them that volunteered. They had to build a 1,000,000-man army practically overnight within the opening months of the war, and since those opening months, practically everyone in the Ukrainian armed forces is not there because they wanted to be. They're there because it is their duty to defend their nation from an enemy invasion. And that's the only reason that Ukraine exists today, because weapons are one part of the story, but having the men to use the weapons is the other part. So if you're saying that conscription is wrong, you're saying that Ukraine shouldn't even survive today because they've only been surviving off of mass conscription inside of their country. With that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my 2 cents, in my opinion, because every citizen has to do their duty and do their part to defend their country. That's just the basic answer of it in an extreme emergency. But with that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of the news for the night, which is going to take us on into the stories of Captain Crack Sparrow. But before we get to the stories of Captain Crack Sparrow in the Eastern Caribbean, we do have to get a couple of questions here and give people a small intermission before we get into the rest of the news for the night. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so grabbing our first three super chat questions, our first one here is an extremely generous $200 donation from Joe in the Box. And
Hey!
thank you very much, Joe, for that massive $200 support right there. By far the largest one of the night. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And that will, of course, help the Costco Chicken Fund, the Coffee Fund, and the Talking Fund, and the Air Purifier Fund. All the funds. And thank you very much, Joe in the Box, for that support once again. He said, "You guys are legends."
And thank you for the unbelievably massive support, Joe in the Box. And thank you for the incredibly kind words. I would say that we're not legends. We're living legends. I'm just kidding, by the way. We're not legends at all. We're just folks doing a job. But I love to know that folks like you greatly enjoy what we do and give us that high praise, because it lets us know that we're doing a damn good job. And we're always proud to know that we're doing our best to be able to get the news out to y'all each and every single night like clockwork. It's a real point of pride these days, folks, to know that tonight, for example, there were almost 15,000 people here live listening to this news. 15,000 people. If we had all of those people in a single room, that would fill the largest auditorium within the United States of America. And that's how many people have been watching this news tonight. It's truly unbelievable to think that we built up that large of a following, because Matthew can tell y'all, I have been doing this my whole life. I've been yapping like this forever. I yapped everyone's head off, including his, before I started running the show on stuff like this that is abstract and generally talks about a larger picture. I've annoyed the hell out of people my entire life doing this, and it's crazy to think that that's now been turned into a major following of people who listen to this every single day. And for that reason alone, I know myself personally, I am highly honored to have all of y'all here. I also know that Enforcer Matt is highly honored to have all of y'all here
Oh, yes.
and put our work at high stock as well. We are both incredibly appreciative for y'all's support and y'all continuously enjoying the show, because it means a great deal to both of us. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again, Joe in the Box, for that amazing support and helping us to keep this channel running, because you are helping us to be able to get them Costco chickens, to get that little sip of coffee, and maybe a pizza here and there, and keep those lights on, most importantly, and the heat going, because it's starting to get cold around here, so that way we can focus on this thing each and every single day. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our second super chat here goes to none other than, guess who? It is Bobby LC39A, and he also puts in a massive $100 support. And a huge shout out to you, Bobby, for that massive support yet again tonight. And once again, bankrolling the channel day in and day out. And we do sincerely appreciate that. And Bobby said, "Great job, guys."
And I thank you so much for the support, Bobby, and thank you for saying a great job. We are trying our best here every single night, and we love to know that we're meeting the mark for a lot of people, including folks like you, Bobby and Joe in the Box, and everyone else who's supporting the channel, and everyone else who's here every single night, because I consider y'all to be the real bulk of the Lee Spring Army. Y'all are heavily invested in Western and American interest around the globe, and making sure that the right side wins in history. And that is a great thing to know, that so many people have been dedicated to this sort of an idea for years, and continue to watch this channel to be able to hear of the endless struggles and strife around the world to ensure that our folks in our alliance are able to continue to live the life that they live, and to ensure that our republic and our sphere will never truly die, much like the LSA. And so a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that the best I possibly can, Bobby, and a big thanks to you once again for helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, folks, we are on to the final question of the segment, and then we're going to be getting right on into the rest of the news for the night.
All right, so our last one here goes to Captain Ted, and Captain Ted puts in a $50 support, also extremely generous. And thank you very much, Captain Ted, for helping to keep the channel running as well with that support. And he said, "I love the work."
Hey, and thank you so much for loving the work. Man, this was the Super Chat segment of high praise, and I got to thank you so much for the support as well, and enjoying our work. Like we always say, we try our hardest every single day to make sure that this show is going to be high quality, and I hope that it's been high quality again tonight. We're entirely grateful and appreciative to everyone, whether you're a Super Chatter, or whether you don't Super Chat, or whether you support us on Patreon, or anything in between. We appreciate every single one of y'all for being here every single night, because once again, it is just unbelievable to know that we built up a following like this over the years, doing this. Out of everything that we did in our lives, this was the thing that is the most successful. It's really crazy to think about it, because I'll tell y'all this: when I was in high school, which wasn't that long ago, in case y'all don't know and you're new, I'm 23 years old and Matthew's 25, so we're quite young, but beyond that, when I was in high school, there were a couple of people in high school who would always say that they wanted to be YouTubers. They would want to become famous people with hundreds of thousands of subscribers and all that. And I would always say to those people, I was like, that's a cool idea, but you really need to be realistic. I mean, a lot of people, don't really make it on YouTube, and you got to make sure that you got, your feet landing in the right place if that didn't work out, and you got some skills to really get a good job. And what's crazy about that, folks, is that every single one of those people never became a YouTuber, and then I did, and I didn't ever believe that YouTube was ever anything that could even be done. It's really the weirdest thing with that. You get in a position that you never expect to be in, and I just never thought that this was possible for anyone. And yet here we are now, almost 4 years later, and we're still doing this. So a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and enjoying our work, because I'll be honest with you, it's really unbelievable on nights like these to think that we are still here 1,358 days later, and we're still doing this, and a lot of people are enjoying this more so now than ever. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, folks, it's time for us to move on into the rest of the news for the night. And also, thanks to everyone in the live chat for giving so many kind words. I've just been seeing them flowing while I've been talking here, and I gotta say, it's wonderful to know that a lot of people really do love this show and love the Lee Spring Army. It's an incredible and wonderful thing. But moving on from that, folks, it is time for us to get on out of that sappy little moment where we talk about how we've made it here and how long it's taken and how unbelievable it is. It is time for us to get on into all of the news of the hunt for Captain Craig Sparrow, because we have been on the hunt today. Actually, as a matter of fact, we've announced the hunt as of today. We have been able to hear that the United States Secretary of War or Secretary of Defense, depending on what you want to call him, either statement applies, has made the announcement today that Operation Spear is now underway. This is the official statement from the Secretary of War or Secretary of Defense. The President has ordered action, and the Department of War is delivering. Today, I'm announcing Operation Southern Spear. Led by Joint Task Force Southern Spear and U.S. Southcom, this mission defends our homeland, removes narco-terrorists from our hemisphere, and secures our homeland from the drugs that are killing our people. The Western Hemisphere is America's neighborhood, and we will protect it. Additional information was also provided out of the White House today that the President has been presented with options to conduct land strikes against Venezuela, and the President is currently deliberating those choices or options at this moment, with an expected decision to be coming within several days. Meanwhile, the U.S.'s military presence within the Eastern Caribbean is wildly high, with the United States Marine Corps VMFA 225 conducting further combat air patrols over the area of the Eastern Caribbean. The VMFA 225 is currently based out of Roosevelt Roads within Puerto Rico and is operating 10 F-35B Lightning IIs from the area of that airfield. These F-35Bs have been commonly seen in all combat air patrols to have externally mounted hardpoints with AIM-9 sidewinders on board. This is leading us to believe that the internal bays are being saved for air-to-ground ordnance, which these aircraft may be carrying during their patrols. But here's the clips that were published by the United States Southcom's Area of Responsibility earlier today, showing the United States Marine Corps' aviation units conducting their air patrols.
That looks pretty nice right there. I like the way that looks. Has a nice look to it.
I'm not gonna lie, the F-35s are just wildly clean looking. Even with the hard points, they still look amazing.
It looks like what's it, a peregrine falcon or something from the side.
Man, look at that. I mean, that is just beautiful, really.
Such potency, too. So dangerous. So docile looking when it's in a calm state here. The Falcon is nice and calm, breathing slowly, but once it gets heated up a little bit, this thing turns into a deadly bastard right here.
Oh, and look at this. It actually has its refueling probe extended, and it's about to refuel with this tanker here.
Gotta stay hydrated.
Man, bro, gotta have that Gatorade. Man, every single one of these clips is just amazing looking, honestly.
Oh.
They
had to mute somebody. Somebody said something they weren't supposed to say. They had to mute it.
They muted the clip because they were probably saying something sensitive.
Beautiful. Well, why is the canopy not giving off that little gold like glow to it? You know how the canopy has like gold tint, like you can see it from some angles. Is it because of is it a different model, or is it just because of the angle?
I think that's the F-22 that you're talking about that has that golden like glaze on
Oh,
the
yep,
canopy.
yep, that's it. Yep, I think you're right. Yeah, that's it for sure, right there. So the other model doesn't have the gold tint.
Yeah, the F-35 doesn't get that golden tint. It has a different glazing on the cockpit canopy, which doesn't give off that sort of like golden look to it.
Interesting. I'll be honest with you. I literally just realized that right now that the F-35 does not have that. I thought they both had it.
Yeah, for some reason the F-35 doesn't have that. It really just has to do with the amount of sunlight that's getting into the cockpit, and I'm just guessing that the F-22's glaze on its glass, well, I believe it's a plexiglass canopy or something like that. I think it's a lot stronger, and that's why it gives off that gold tint. And the F-35, I think, has a far smaller tint on its canopy.
Man, that gold tint is baller though. It's like a nice pair of like sunglasses or something like that. They have the little gold tint on the front of them and stuff. It's like the canopy's got that whole gold tint over the whole thing. It looks pretty nice.
Man, honestly, it's just a shame that they're going to be retiring the F-22 here in a couple of years because of all the airframe cracking issues that it's having. It's such a beautiful plane. It was the great. Like, I'll be honest with y'all, it was the greatest looking fifth generation aircraft that ever came out, and it's just so unfortunate that it was really the first ever in the world, and so it ran into fuselage structural cracking issues, and they're going to have to retire them. But I mean, there is a lot of other cool aircraft that are going to be coming out in the future. It's just such a beautiful looking aircraft though. But anyways, getting back to the clip of the F-35s in the Caribbean, we see them continuing to conduct their in-air refueling and then departing after the refueling is completed.
Mm.
Man, wonderful looking, honestly. Like, whether or not you like the idea of what the U.S. is doing in the Caribbean, you have to admit the F-35s look damn good. But moving on from that and on down into the additional news that we have about U.S. force deployments within the area, we have also been able to see the presence of a Grumman C-2 Greyhound within the area around about 100 miles north of Antigua and Barbuda. This is leading us to believe that the Gerald R. Ford is somewhere within that general area, as the Grumman C-2A Greyhound is a carrier-based support aircraft, which generally can resupply the carrier with small emergency resupplies. So that heavily suggests, due to the presence of the C-2 Greyhound, that the Gerald R. Ford is nearby and hanging out somewhere outside the island chain in the Eastern Caribbean. We also saw that a U.S. destroyer was incredibly close to the Venezuelan coast. The USS Stockdale was only 50 kilometers off of the coast of Venezuela earlier today, which is just about 40 miles off of the coast. So practically within their territorial waters nearly. This was a fairly interesting maneuver, considering that it is within point-blank range of possible anti-ship missile batteries that the Venezuelans may possess. This is quite a show of force, to say the least, and also a show of confidence that the U.S. could engage and defeat any anti-ship missiles that were fired by the Venezuelans from the coast, if they ever decide to do that. Still, we also were able to hear that another narco vessel was hit by the United States within the Caribbean today, although footage was not provided by the U.S. Southcom Area of Responsibility. Maduro is also stating that the United States is an aggressor for the militarization of the Caribbean and demands that the United Nations condemn the threat. The only problem is that the United States is a permanent member of the UN Security Council and for that reason has veto power. So even if all other 4 members of the Security Council tried to condemn the United States, we veto it and then they can't officially condemn anything. We also were able to see, we were able to hear today that the Colombian president, Gustavo Petro, has proposed something that is absolutely insane in actual principle. But let me go and pull this up really quickly to show you all this, because this is something I cannot believe it was even proposed. So Petro is proposing the revival of Gran Colombia, which is quite literally just Gran Colombia.
Grand Columbia. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
So if y'all don't know what Gran Colombia is, way back in the day, from about 1819 to 1831, Gran Colombia was this. Pretty much the entire northern part of the South American continent, also including Panama. This is just absolutely stupid. So, Anyways, he's trying to propose the revival of this union between Colombia, Venezuela, Ecuador, and Panama with a common parliament and shared presidency like the European Union to counter U.S. military strikes in the Caribbean that have killed over 70 suspected drug traffickers. This is something that's never going to get anywhere, to be entirely
Hell
honest
no.
with y'all.
Absolutely not. Honestly, we got Grand Columbia before we got GTA 6. I never thought I'd see that. This is such a stupid idea. It's like these countries don't have, even if you pool their forces together, it's not worth creating an alliance to pool those forces together. The U.S. could steamroll that entire green area right there that used to be called Grand Columbia, and this alliance that they want to reinitiate. They could wipe the floor of the whole place, just the U.S. alone, if they wanted to. Not that they should, but they could. That's the point. So it's like, is this, presumably, the Colombian president who's been running his mouth like a fiend recently, he's trying to attempt to scare the United States. This isn't going to scare anybody with a brain because this isn't scary. This isn't intimidating at all.
Also, man, I gotta get a huge laugh out of the idea of this guy going, damn, Venezuela, you're about to lose your sovereignty and your leadership of your country to the United States invading you. How about we just annex you instead and make you a larger part of Colombia? It's like, what type of stupid proposal is that? Like, the Venezuelans or anyone would accept that.
It's so dumb. And also, it's like, also, by the way, Venezuela is about to go down, or at least Maduro's government's about to go down really hard. How stupid is the Colombian president to want to jump in the middle of that and also drag himself into it? It's like, why would he not try to stay out of it and shut his mouth? That shows you how dumb the Colombian president is. He sees the U.S. picking a fight with Maduro, and the Colombian president says, hey, wait a minute, you're not going to start that fight without me. He jumped right in the middle of it. He's going to get punched by the United States just because he jumped in the middle of the fight. How stupid.
Man, this guy came out and said, if anyone's going to get their ass beat, it's going to be me. Like, and he made himself get in the middle of the fight. This is the same idiot, by the way, who was in New York City with a megaphone right outside the United Nations demanding that the military overthrows the president just a couple of months ago, by the way. This is that same clown, and this is the kind of stuff that comes out of this guy is, you know, what would be bad if the United States invaded Venezuela and overthrew Maduro? So let me just give him a proposal that Maduro steps down and Colombia pretty much takes over Venezuela without a shot being fired. That's a much better idea, right? That would make a lot more sense. This guy's like, I gotta be honest with y'all, I don't know who the hell this guy is, but his mother must have drank some Petro back when he was a baby, because this guy is an absolute idiot. I don't know what the hell's wrong with him, but this guy is absolutely stupid. Nothing he says makes any sense, and this is one of the most nonsensical and stupid things I've seen in foreign policy in a hot minute, to be entirely honest with y'all. Beyond that, though, while this guy is an absolute idiot, and he makes no sense at all, and this is one of the dumbest foreign policy initiatives I've ever seen by a country anywhere in the world recently, a lot of people are talking about whether or not the United States is about to attack Venezuela as an extension of Operation Spear, or Southern Spear, as it's officially called. But Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right, so now the U.S. has officially declared the start of Operation Spear, which is designed to remove narco-terrorists from South America, and specifically, they're referring to Venezuela, which is obviously the source of ire right now of the United States. So 64% said strikes will start in mere days on Venezuela, while 13% said strikes will likely start in weeks or months, and 12% said nothing major is going to happen. So believe it or not trying to get my kudos too much here, but at the same time, if you go check Twitter, I literally called this 3 hours before it happened and it was announced. I said, my prediction is that strikes are probably going to start on Venezuela in the next few days. About 2 or 3 hours later, the Secretary of War declared the start of Operation Spear. So very good timing with that. Very good timing. As you can see right there, there's the proof of it right there. It's even got the timestamps to go with it. And I said, look at that, right on time. So here's my prediction. My prediction is this, and it could be wrong, so take it for what you will, but all the assets are now in place around Venezuela to conduct these strikes. The aircraft carrier strike group just showed up in the region, and also the U.S. president just made the decision to start Operation Spear, which is basically the green light to start these strikes. So My prediction is this. They are going to wait until the market closes on Friday because they don't really start these operations when the market's open because it has a risk of potentially tanking the stock market. And presidents are all worried about the stock market. They don't want that thing to tank because it looks bad. So wait until Friday after the market closes, and we'll probably see maybe over the weekend the first strikes begin on narco terror sites inside of Venezuela, or maybe something even bigger than that. Once again, I could be wrong. That's my hunch. But based on what we're seeing right now, I would say personally, I'm leaning heavily toward that idea. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say strikes are going to be starting most likely within days. Right now, we have the largest amassing of assets within the southern regions of the Caribbean as we possibly can. I mean, practically, the U.S. Second Fleet has never been larger within recent history at this moment. We also have a large ground contingent in the form of the 22nd MEU. We also have the Iwo Jima Amphibious Ready Group. We have a large amount of air assets present on the Gerald R. Ford and at Roosevelt Roads. It is going to happen. We do not keep a large amount of assets within an area for a prolonged period of time without conducting a military activity of some sort. So I will greatly assume at this point that some form of strikes are going to be happening on land against Venezuela here within the very near future, probably within the next few days. I would generally be with Enforcer Matt on that. Or at the latest, it may be within the next 2 weeks. The famous 2 weeks. We all know 2 weeks. And I'm not joking about that one, actually. I'm being somewhat serious. I think it's either going to be within the next few days or maybe the next 2 weeks at the latest. Because whenever, like, this is something else to keep in mind. Whenever it looks like a strike is just days away, it may actually be a few weeks away at that point. Because they may be having to get all the commanders on the same page, coordinate the battle plan, and then get everyone on the same page that at a specific point in time, everything is going to begin as far as actual operations against Venezuela. So it may be a couple of days or 2 weeks, possibly. So I would still be with the 65% nonetheless. It's most likely going to happen incredibly soon. Still, with that, I hope we have addressed that quite well. And also, folks, I have to say this. My standpoint on the war in Venezuela has changed a lot, especially considering that the Russian Federation is now openly arming and supplying Venezuela at this moment. We really, unfortunately, this is what I have to say. We shouldn't have made Venezuela into an issue right now. We could have left this alone and no one would have paid attention to it until a few years later, and then we could have kicked off any actions against Venezuela to remove Russian and Chinese influence from the Americas. But now that we've made it an issue, the Russians and the Chinese have sensed a area of opportunity, and they're now starting to arm Venezuela to attempt to make it a form of a sphere of influence fortress within the area that we really won't be able to deal with easily. So now, because of that, we have to deal with them, because if we walk away now and we don't deal with them, the Russians and the Chinese are going to start arming the Venezuelans to the teeth and also reform their military into an actual competent force, possibly. Those two things would be catastrophic, and then we really wouldn't be able to deal with them easily. For that purpose, and that purpose alone, we generally have to deal with them now, instead of what we were saying a while ago, which is we could deal with this later. So with that, I hope that does address that well, at least in my opinion, and we'll generally have to see how this turns out in the long run. Hopefully it'll turn out well. But moving on out of the Americas, and on up into the United States for just a brief moment, we were able to hear that the Secretary of State is saying that they're running out of stuff to sanction. I don't know why he was in an aircraft hangar when he was making these statements. That is beyond me. I don't even know why he was here. But still, the U.S. Secretary of State has openly stated that Washington has almost no tools left for introducing new sanctions against Russia. I guess we're just conveniently forgetting that we can liquidate their assets that are held within the United States. The largest oil companies are already under restrictions, and beyond that, it's a dead end, except for the liquidation of their assets. According to the Secretary of State, it will now be up to Europe to deal with Russia's shadow fleet. The U.S., he claims, has already done its part. Well, so wait a minute, he's actually saying right there that there's more to do. It's just that they don't want to do it.
Yeah, that's what he was saying. That's the way I interpreted it too. And basically, I will say this: I'm simply glad the U.S. put the sanctions on the Russian oil companies. That was something that I was beginning to wonder if the U.S. was going to do whatsoever, but they finally did it. So honestly, I think that's all we can ask at this point. Europe can handle the shadow fleet, and it's something that Europe can handle, but Europe has to have the guts to actually do it too, because the U.S. does not really have the guts. We went as far as to sanction the companies, but we won't go as far as to actually interdict the shadow fleet vessels. So maybe Europe can do it, and maybe the U.S. can simply give moral support behind it. Possibly. That sounds like what they're going to do.
Yeah, I would say there's a lot more that we can do, like what liquidating assets, seizing the shadow tankers, but apparently we've just drawn the line at implementing sanctions and then hoping everyone else does the rest of the lifting. So, moving on out of that news in the capital of the United States and on out into the rest of the news from around the world, it's time for us to get on into all the other news that's happened over the course of the day. So, working our way on over into East Asia, we're going to be taking a little pit stop in Honolulu, or at least around the area of Oahu, as we have been able to hear that the Coast Guard responded to a Russian military vessel being spotted off of the coast of Honolulu, Hawaii. We also were able to get a statement from the United States Coast Guard in a written report as follows. U.S. Coast Guard responds to Russian military vessel off Honolulu. Coast Guard Oceania District External Affairs. The U.S. Coast Guard detected and monitored a Russian military vessel operating near U.S. territorial waters, approximately 15 nautical miles south of Oahu on the 29th of October. A Coast Guard HC-130 Hercules from Air Station Barbers Point and the Coast Guard cutter William Hart responded to the Russian Federation Navy Auxiliary General Intelligence Ship Karelia, a Vishnia-class intelligence ship, by conducting a safe and professional overflight and transiting near the vessel. Acting in accordance with international law, Coast Guard personnel are monitoring the Russian vessel's activities near U.S. territorial waters to provide maritime security for U.S. vessels operating in the area and to support U.S. homeland defense efforts. The U.S. Coast Guard routinely monitors maritime activity around the Hawaiian Islands and throughout the Pacific to ensure the safety and security of U.S. waters, stated Captain Matthew Chong, Chief of Response, Coast Guard Oceania District. Working in concert with partners and allies, our crew monitor and respond to foreign military vessel activity near our territorial waters to protect our maritime borders and defend our sovereign interest. Coast Guard Oceania District works in conjunction with U.S. Indo-Pacific Command and interagency partners to constantly monitor the activity of foreign military vessels operating near U.S. territorial waters, including the waters of U.S. territories of Guam and American Samoa, to ensure homeland security and defense. Under customary international law, foreign military vessels are permitted to transit and operate outside other nations' territorial waters, which extend up to 12 nautical miles from shore. That is the statement from the U.S. Coast Guard's Oceania District near to the area, and it does appear that the United States Coast Guard was on top of the incident when it did occur. Still, a lot of people were wondering why a Russian intelligence ship was so close to the coast of Hawaii. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that, and what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So apparently, just 15 miles off the Hawaiian coast, the U.S. Coast Guard intercepted a Russian spy ship. And what are your thoughts about that? 62% said Russia is doing surveillance, while 29% said Russia is trying to intimidate, and only 7% said this really isn't that big of a deal. So 15 miles off the coast, I would say that's a big deal. Also, obviously, Hawaii's out in the middle of the ocean, so Russia would have to be very deliberate in going to Hawaii. So obviously, there was a very clear intent behind it, and I would say the intent was to do surveillance. I'm with the 60%. I believe the vessel was a spy ship in nature. It was a vessel designed for surveillance operations like that. So if we can maybe get a picture of it here for a second, we can kind of show what this thing looks like. And there we go. So we're told it's for surveillance and also for operations of intelligence. So I'm with the 62%. I think it's likely what it was. But Enforcer, what say you?
This is the little shitter that was near to Honolulu. Like, hey, man,
Yeah.
this picture made it look like it was a warship. That's actually I believe, a Knox-class destroyer that was escorting one of these way back in the day. This would have been like in the 80s or something. But this is the actual little shit, or a ship, whichever way you want to call it, that was near to Honolulu. Clearly, it's conducting surveillance. It's wildly close to the coastline, and this vessel is rigged to be able to listen to any form of communications that are being conducted in the area. So I would have to heavily believe that it was conducting reconnaissance of some sort within that general area. So with that, I hope that does address that well from both of our ends. I believe that we're in the same camp on that one. And moving on from that, we also got to see that the USS Nimitz was still within the area of the South China Sea today, and the United States Indo-Pacific Command, or generally the Navy, published some footage of the Nimitz, and I'm not going to lie, the clip went hard. Take a little look.
Is that real?
That was real. That was actually really cool.
That almost looks fake. That's so wild to see.
And we now see the helicopter hovering near the deck, taking a look at the aircraft present. I'm not going to lie, man. It was a really cool clip altogether. But moving on out of that news, we then were able to hear that the Chinese have threatened to glass the Japanese today. Now, that's a turn of events. Usually, the Japanese were the ones glassing the Chinese historically. Now, the tables have turned. So, like, it's a little bit interesting with that. The Chinese literally openly threatened the Japanese today from their foreign ministry. According to China, they have stated that those who play with fire will perish by it, after their prime minister stated that China invading Taiwan would be a survival-threatening situation for Japan, which heavily implied that Japan would militarily intervene in a Chinese attempted invasion of Taiwan. Quite crazy, honestly, that they would threaten that. And we also have been able to hear, in other news, that Xi Jinping will not attend the G20 summit. They didn't explain why. This is giving us a pretty good idea that the internal political situation within the Chinese Communist Party and the ongoing schism with the PLA is actually of serious concern to Xi Jinping. To explain how it works in communist circles with dictators like this, if they believe that they're about to be ousted, they really cannot leave the capital. They can't really do much of anything because they could get overthrown in their own absence from their country. To give y'all a great example of this, one leader that was stupid enough to leave the capital of their country and then get overthrown was Nikita Khrushchev. If y'all have ever heard that story, it's the funniest thing. Nikita Khrushchev left Moscow, I believe, in 1967. Let me check that. I want to make sure that I get that part of the story correct because the series of events is fairly important. So, let's see here. He was the first secretary of the Communist Party up until 1964. Yeah, so right after the Cuban Missile Crisis, a couple of years later. The way that Khrushchev handled the Cuban Missile Crisis actually didn't really please a lot of people within the Soviet Politburo. So he had a lot of enemies after the Cuban Missile Crisis within the central part of the Soviet Communist Party. So, one day, he left to go and hang out at his dacha for a couple of weeks in southern Russia. So he left. And then everyone in the Politburo, after a couple of days, they deliberated it, and they just decided to oust him. So one day while he's at his dacha, the phone rings. Ring, ring. He picks it up, and some guy from the Politburo says, "Hey, we just overthrew you, kiss our ass." Click, and hung up on him, and he was literally overthrown just like that. So Xi Jinping leaving China, he could end up in a similar situation, especially if he thinks that there's a large amount of political rivals within the Chinese Communist Party or the PLA that may be plotting or conspiring to overthrow him. So that generally would be the reason we would think that he wouldn't be leaving China to go to the G20 summit, which is a fairly important summit, mind you all. It has to be because he is incredibly scared that there may be an attempted coup against his leadership if he is to leave the country for an extended period of time longer than several days. So I hope that addresses that whole story well, because I think that that's the only reason we can deduce that he is going to be hanging out in Beijing in the midst of the G20 summit. Moving on out of the Chinese news and on down into the Indian Ocean, we also have been able to see that satellite footage of Diego Garcia has confirmed that 3 KC-135 aerial tankers are present. Apparently, the fourth one is now returning back to Okinawa for unknown reasons, but there are 3 tankers that are now hanging out at Diego Garcia. We do not know why yet, but I'm sure we'll start to get a clearer picture of why they're down there here in the future. Meanwhile, India and Pakistan are getting ready to kill each other, as usual. The Indians have stated through their home minister, they don't have a Department of State or a Department of the Interior. Apparently, they just have the home minister. So I guess in the midst of all of this, they are like an interior decorator or something like that. But they have stated the punishment for those behind the Delhi car blast will send a message to the world: no one should ever dare to attack our nation again. This is very similar statements that were made after the Polygram massacre that occurred within northern India several months ago. We also were able to hear.
Listen, they said the man was in the interior ministry. Can you believe it? This man's an interior decorator. Can you believe it?
man, his house looked like shit.
There you go. That was the extra part. Yeah, that's it.
Honestly, Pakistan also stated that they are ready to fight a two-front war against India and the Taliban in both directions. So Pakistan is getting ready to throw hands, and Pakistani hands are rated E for everyone, and we do know that because they did get done greasing the Taliban just a little while ago, and they also greased the Indians the last time they got into conflict with them. So is it possible that they can take on a two-front war? Maybe. I mean, it's not really out of the question at this point. At least one-on-one, they hands down have generally won both confrontations with the Taliban and India. So they may actually have a good chance of fighting a two-front war, considering the Taliban really has no offensive abilities at all, and they practically expended all of their ammunition on day one with the war with Pakistan. So there's a chance that they actually may be able to fight a two-front war somewhat decently, but we'll generally have to wait and see exactly how that turns out. Still, once again, the region's at a pen drop. They could go to war at any minute. We're believing at this point they may be going to war at some point here within the near future, and if they do, we will be, of course, ready to cover the developments live as they're happening when a war breaks out. Generally, there's a lot of wars that we're currently on pretty much like tornado watch for, to put it that way. The Thailand-Cambodia war, the India-Pakistan-Afghanistan war, the Israeli-Iran war, and also the U.S.-Venezuela war. Those all are 4 wars that could be happening within the next few weeks or months, and we're keeping a very keen eye on all of them to see if any of them are going to kick off here soon. Still, a lot of people are talking about their opinions on who might come out on top in a larger confrontation between Pakistan and India. And Matthew, what are people thinking about that? And what are you thinking about that as well?
All right. So, as y'all might remember, when the last conflict happened between India and Pakistan, in my personal opinion, India got the floor wiped by Pakistan. And Pakistan was doing a number on the Indian Air Force, taking down jets left and right, which was kind of surprising because India boasts to be a very powerful military force, but yet it seemed like India was kind of getting kicked around a bit by Pakistan. So, now Pakistan is saying that it will fight a two-front war against the Afghan Taliban and the Indian military all at the same time, as India warns of dire attacks soon on Pakistan, and who will win in that scenario. And it looks like 39% said India will win that war, while 28% said Pakistan will win that war, and 22% said it's a 50-50 chance. So in a two-front war scenario where Pakistan's fighting on 2 different fronts, I think Pakistan's advantage is going to be taken away pretty quickly, because Pakistan, while it did kick India around a little bit, it wasn't a major advantage. It's easily lost if they start fighting on multiple fronts, and I think Pakistan would be in trouble if they both start a war on both different fronts. So in that case, with India being a bad military, in my opinion, I think that would give India the little advantage it needs to actually get the leg up over at Pakistan, pretty much. So I'm with the 39%. I think in that scenario alone, in a two-front situation, India likely would win. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would have to say that, in my honest opinion, I think that Pakistan could actually end up winning a war between India and Afghanistan simultaneously. In the prior exchanges that we've seen between these 3 countries, Pakistan has always come out on top generally in the amount of losses that have been inflicted. And also, at least for the larger part, coming out on top. In between the exchange with the Taliban and Pakistan, after day 1, when the Taliban conducted their surprise attacks on the Pakistani border, Pakistan turned that situation around literally the next day after, and were pretty much winning in all fronts against the Taliban, to the point that the Taliban practically had to accept their terms to be able to stop the conflict. Then with the Pakistan-India conflict, one, we weren't botted as heavily by the Pakistanis as we were the Indians, which generally left a better opinion in my mind of the Pakistanis than the Indians. But also, secondly, beyond that qualitative assessment, the Pakistanis did shoot down 5 Indian aircraft. The Indians did not shoot down a single Pakistani aircraft. And as far as the conflict went on the ground in the line of contact area, the Pakistanis were really delivering some pretty heavy blows to the Indians in terms of casualties. And while neither side made any ground near the border, at least in terms of casualties alone, it appears that Pakistani fires were far more deadly to the Indians than Indian fires were to the Pakistanis. Also, I just got to say, due to the fact that Indian bots being so damn annoying, it really is hard to get on the side of the Indians, because no matter how we covered the conflict, which was as neutral as we possibly could in the last time this broke out, Indian bots were swarming our channel and acting like absolute fools. So for that reason, I'm just not really also for the fact that India has pretty much tried to go full in on BRICS again, I'm not really a big fan of the Indians. As a matter of fact, I'm more of a fan of the Pakistanis at this point, and keeping the old alliance alive with Pakistan over India, than I am with the United States trying to align itself with the Indians at any point. Because...
Also,
go ahead.
Also, by the way, I was going to point this out while we're still on the topic. Ed Seifert said, "I honestly don't care which one wins." I'll be honest with you, Ed. I kind of feel the same way between this whole conflict between Pakistan and India. But the problem is there's potentially nukes involved between those two countries. So that's what makes it more of a conflict to watch, is because of that nuke threat. Because when you have two highly emotional countries, Pakistan and India, in my opinion, are extremely emotional. And you can see how hyped up and crazy they get when wars start breaking out. They start going berserk. You got to be careful about that, because it is possible that one of these countries could be one of the first to use a tactical nuke in a warfare scenario. And it doesn't matter who's launching the nuke first. It could be the Russia-Ukraine war that leads to a nuclear weapon being used. It could be India and Pakistan. It really doesn't matter where it happens. The moment a country starts using nukes like a traditional weapon, that's Pandora's box being opened, which is a terrible thing to happen. So we have to be careful with countries with nukes, and that's why we have to watch that conflict. So as much as I sort of like really don't want to cover that conflict, to be perfectly honest, it's one you got to watch just because of the nukes.
Yeah, I would agree. But one thing that I also have to say, though, that's a big positive, if they do end up nuking each other, they're just going to end up nuking each other, and they don't even have the ability to really nuke anyone else because they lack the range of their missile programs to be able to reach anyone else. So luckily, they'll just end up nuking each other if push comes to shove and worse comes to worse. So it won't end up extremely bad. It's not like any other nuclear conflict where everyone else in the world could nuke us or our allies. They can hardly nuke anyone else outside of the subcontinent. So generally, it won't end up too bad. One thing I'll also say, though, like, here's my bones to pick. Pakistan threatened to nuke us in the last war. They threatened to nuke everyone in the world, just for the hell of it, because they weren't going to lose. So they just threatened to kill everyone, which was really stupid. And then also on top of that, I just do not have a positive opinion of India at all for really any reason. Like, I hate to say that for like for generally the sake of saying I just don't really like a country just because. But India is not really a great country nationally, governmentally, economically, geopolitically, foreign policy wise, or anything for that matter, because the president of the United States, I will say, did not make the greatest move in insulting the Indians, but it literally took one insult for them to completely destroy the relations with the United States and then immediately go and chum up with the Chinese, which they've been in an endless border war with for about 50 years. Like, how in the world, like, how questionable is a possible ally when when one small insult will send them completely hurtling in the other direction, foreign policy wise, straight into the lap of the Chinese? I mean, that is a really questionable sort of a foreign policy that the Indians have. Because if I remember correctly, the Indians have insulted the United States on a myriad of occasions, and we haven't seen that that's really shaken the United States foreign policy prerogative in trying to align with them. But at the same time, the U.S. throws one insult in the Indians' direction, and then they go running straight to the Chinese again. That's a country I don't really respect foreign policy-wise.
Yeah, honestly, my only problem is India is like any other country. India has its pros and cons, just like any other country, pretty much anywhere. But my issue with India is this: they do not want to align with the NATO sphere of influence. They really don't want to. They want to gravitate toward the other sphere, like for example, the Russian sphere. They want to go that way, and they try to sort of ride the fence a little bit. But India just doesn't mesh that well with the whole NATO like geopolitical like mindset. It just doesn't mesh, and they want to go the other way. It's really just not. It's really their thing. So that's my problem with them. Is you constantly have to keep like arguing for the Indians to be on our side when they don't really want to be on our side. They want to go to the other side.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan. Like, to be honest with you, I'm not really a big fan of either. But I got a good bone to pick with them. And someone also said you got a bone to pick with them because of the bots. Like, look, like it is something that when we covered the conflict between Pakistan and India, we didn't cover it with any bias. It was the most neutral coverage we've ever provided of a war because America didn't really have a dog to back in that conflict. And yet, at the same time, out of the two countries and their populations, the Indians and their bots came in here in the largest amounts and were just calling for the banning of our channel because we even mentioned that one of their aircraft was shot down, and we literally had video proof of it, and we were showing it, and they were calling for the banning of this channel. That's not really, that's like, if that is representative of their country, which generally it is, because most other countries we've ever run into contact with, even the Russian viewers are generally respectful here on this channel and generally agree with our standpoint of pro-American and pro-Western interests, the few that we have. When you start covering a conflict that includes their country and you're as neutral as you can possibly be, and they come in here calling for the banning of your show because they took losses that were confirmed on film, I mean, I don't really have a lot of respect for a country like that wants to just ban people who are actually covering the news as unbiasedly as we could. But anyways, moving on from that, it is time for us to move on into the rest of our news, which we still have a great deal of. Moving us into Saudi Arabia, we were able to hear that foreign policy advisors to the president have actually warned that if we sell F-35 Lightnings to the Chinese, to the Saudi Arabians, correction, the Chinese might try and steal the technology out of the aircraft. I don't know why that's never been a concern before, because we've sold Abrams and F-15s and so on, which are some of the top-of-the-line weapon systems we have, to Saudi Arabia, but apparently this time they're going to steal the tech out of it. So I don't really know how that works, and also I don't know what that means. It's like, does that mean that the Chinese have stolen the tech out of the F-15EX? Because we've given a couple of those to the Saudis, well, they bought them. It's like, did they steal the tech out of that? That's the most advanced F-15 we currently have on the market. But moving on from that and on up into Ukraine, we do have a good amount of news that came out of Ukraine over the course of the day, and we're going to be getting into the little bit that we have. Moving us on into the northern area of the country, we once again got to see the minigun obliterating a Shahed, which is always cool.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, they got it. Oh my goodness, that one blew up in flight. That's actually pretty cool.
And Ukraine's using that minigun like they got ammo to burn. Oh, they're happy.
Bro, that one guy went... Man, it's like, dude, that's crazy. But anyways, moving on from that clip and on into the Suja region, we also got to see a drone hitting the Russians. Oh, let me turn
Oh, is that a bars? I think that's a bars.
Man, they hit him with some bars.
Man, hit him with the 18-bar combo.
Man, honestly. Moving on from that and on into our next clip, further on down in our location unknowns, we also got to see another Russian Hedgehog, this time a T-72B3.
It's the brush. They use this right here to clean car tires on the weekend. Man,
this is the Brillo pad. Like this, they go around cleaning off rust. It's incredible. You can see the rust on it a little bit already. This one will probably be destroyed in about a day. Also, here's a side profile of it in case you really wanted a good look at it. But moving on from that and on into the casualty report, we also got the casualty report for the day, which was great because 2 Bobcats were lost. Holy moly!
Holy moly! 2 Bobcats in one day. That's fantastic right there. Can you believe they're about to cross the 4,000 mark? Since the war started, almost 4,000 special equipment gone. I would call that a special equipment operation.
I call that a wonderful day. I call that another Tuesday. But Miss Disick here, the record stated the troop loss is increasing, as are AFVs. Special equipment, always nice to see, and I definitely agree. And over the course of the past 24 hours, 1,180 Russian soldiers have been wounded and killed, along with 11 APCs, 88 supply trucks, 2 main battle tanks, 9 artillery pieces, 141 drones, 2 anti-aircraft warfare systems, and 2 Bobcat skid steers. Today was a pretty good day, and I think that the numbers show that. Moving on through the front lines, unfortunately, folks, there was no frontline footage that came out today. I know that is incredibly shocking, and unfortunately, I scoured everywhere to try and find some, and there was none at all. So I'll give you all a little bit of a summary of what's been going on in each area of the front. Right now, the Battle of Kupiansk is being heavily fought. The Ukrainians are holding their ground in the city, and the Russians are fighting heavily from the northern side of the city, attempting to push south to try and take control of the entirety of it. The area in between Kupiansk to the area of Torske is generally inactive, but around the area of the Severonsky Forest and Seversk, heavy battles are being fought. The Ukrainians are conducting limited counterattacks at the moment to throw the Russians off and stop them from regrouping, and generally that's the situation within that area of the front. Meanwhile, down towards Konstantinivka, We have also seen that the Russian Federation is continuing an offensive in this direction, although the Ukrainians are doggedly holding on to the front line that they have right now within that direction. In Pokrovsk, the Russians are fighting within the city streets. The Ukrainians have been able to stop advances over the course of the day and inflict some pretty decent losses. Throughout the southern front, there has been sporadic fighting, especially around Velika Novorossiysk, but nothing that is heavily indicative of larger frontline actions or any sort of offensive operations by the Russians. Moving on down into Kherson, this was the only frontline footage that we had for the day, and crazily enough, it was a Russian POV of their fight for survival on a boat within the Dnipro River. So here's the clip, and we're going to be muting the dubstep, like, immediately. But we can see them riding around in the river, calling them Ed Sharpova, and using about 9 shotguns to attempt to take down the Ukrainian drones.
Man, it's just a boat full of dudes holding shotguns, taking pot shots at it, like literally holding the shotguns over their head. Damn, look at that.
Was that a drone that just ran right into the boat? Oh my
Yeah,
god!
it was. Look at that. What kind of drone was that? It was like a canister.
It was. I think it was a standard FPV. Let's try and take a closer look at it if we can. Yeah, it was a standard FPV. I'm trying to. Oh man, I can't pause at the right time. It was literally there for like 1 frame, but it was a standard FPV, and I think that was just the explosive canister underneath.
Well, that's a pretty big drone coming in. Looks like it did some damage too.
Yeah, it really does look like it did some damage.
Oh look! Oh wow, it's smoky. Look at that. That thing was puffing like a steam engine on the side.
Man, hold up, man. I gotta pull up Mr. Toad. Oh, dude. Man, I gotta go get this really quickly. Let me see if I can find this here. Oh my god, man! Let me go get the picture of this, man, because this is exactly what that looked like, bro. It looked like that scene. Like, let me go back and show this to y'all again right here. This right here looked like that scene, dude, from Mr. Toad when all the cops were on the train shooting at Mr. Toad.
Yeah, it does look like it. It looks just like it, honestly. They got the spotlight. You got the cops out here and everything. Go back to that smoky.
Dude, it's literally that.
It really is. Look at that. That's crazy, honestly.
Dude, the Ukrainian behind that drone right now, he's going, a motor car. Man, he's like trying to get that drone on it. Oh my god, that is ridiculous. Man, but we can see them trying to light up the drones. They are getting absolutely swarmed by Ukrainian drones, by the way. It's
Oh my god, man. Did you see how close that guy was? Like that was almost a friendly fire incident right there. That was like inches away from a friendly fire.
Dude, also big shout out to the driver, by the way, who almost final destinationed everyone by getting them decapitated by that pier right there. Big congratulations to him, because it almost got everyone taken out on the boat anyways.
Jeez, I mean, these guys, now you understand their 2-week time frame for a Russian soldier. You're starting to understand it. If you didn't before, you understand it now.
Dude, going out onto the Dnipro River for them is like the Thunderdome, honestly. Like, it's just endless attacks by the drones. Oh my god, dude. Oh my god, did you see that? Look at this. Dude, this guy almost friendly fired a guy right in front of him.
I'm telling you, everybody on this boat, the bigger risk at this point is the friendly fire situations, honestly. I mean, the friendly fire is about to take them out quicker than the drone.
Man, this is insane.
What the hell are the Russians even doing on the boat? I mean, they're going in circles, like, trying to just dodge the drones? What were they doing?
They're trying to get from one island to the next, because they actually are holding a few islands within the river. And that's why they're having to take these ventures on the boats.
Look at that look at these guys' faces over here, like, shit.
Man, this guy back here, he's like, I'm fine for my freaking life. And this guy's about to go, bro, like, what is that face, man?
This is like Wario right here in the front.
He's about to go, why? Why, Luigi? Oh my god, here comes another. Oh my god.
It's literally right there. It's literally hovering right in front of their faces. This is insane.
This is nuts, honestly. This is crazy.
Somehow the driver's hanging in there somehow. Look, it's rolling coal now. This thing's southern.
Bro, the engine's on fire. Oh my god. Why do they got a landmine on the side of the boat? Wait, they're sinking?
Yeah, look, there was like the whole... Look at them. Look at that.
Dude, why do they have a TM-62, like, on the side of the boat for no reason?
I don't even know. This is confusing. But this thing's, like, taking on water.
The captain wired in, we had water coming in, and the good ship and crew was in peril. Man, honestly, this is insane. Oh my god, there's another.
I'm just kind of surprised this boat's taking this beating and keeps going.
Oh,
Look at that.
bro, they got the Mr. Frog, they got the Mr. Toad firing line going on again, man. Look at this.
Barrels everywhere.
It's literally a roaming flat cannon on the river, man. Oh my god. Oh, here comes
so dumb. Look at that thing swerving around. I mean, this is just like they're getting taunted at this point too.
Oh, I think one of the boats in front of them was hit because look at that black plume of smoke up there that you see for a second. I think they tried to hide it from view, but it looks like another boat did get hit.
Damn, it's like a clown show. And the crazy part is they're not making any progress. They just keep going in circles.
Oh my god, dude, here it comes again. The engine's on fire. Oh, they got hit. They got hit. Oh, yeah, that drone went. Look, this one. Oh my god. Oh my god, this is insane.
Wait a minute, why is it totally different times of the day? It went from being overcast to sunny. Were they circling around here for hours or something?
They were on that river for days.
Man, they were out there for hours doing this or something. It went from daytime to overcast to like almost nighttime.
Dude, look at him trying to bail out in the reeds. And then these guys came from the sinking boat. They're like, shit,
wait a second. How deep is the water? They're literally standing in it.
Looks like they were waiting in it for about 200 yards because the boat's out there sinking. Like you can see it at the mouse cursor. That boat's sinking.
So you're telling me they're doing donuts and boats and the water is waist deep?
Apparently, yeah.
What the hell is this clown show? I mean, I don't even understand.
So, I guess on the bright side, man, no one has to learn how to swim because if the boat sinks, it literally just drops like 3 feet and then it's at the bottom.
Remember, it's Russians now. It's Russian soldiers. So, I mean, it's possible. I mean, 2 or 3 feet, that could be enough to drown in it.
You know, honestly, man, I think a Russian could drown in a puddle of water on a sidewalk, honestly. But, oh, man. Was that Yevgeny Prigozhin?
He's bald.
My eyes, man. But that's the end of the clip. And it looks like the Russians are having a fun day out on the river. But moving on from that, it's time for us to get on up into Kyiv and cover the speech from President Volodymyr Zelensky here on this day of the war. That was one hell of a clip, folks. I got to be honest with y'all. I don't think that could be topped. But it's time for us to get on. Can we pause that, please? But it's time for us to get on into the speech that Zelensky made at the entrance to the Zaporizhzhia Oblast. So without further ado, here's the speech. Speech!
Бажаю здоров'я, шановні українці. Сьогодні весь день в Запорізькій області я був в наших бойових бригадах. 65-та окрема механізована, яка у складі 17-го корпусу захищає нашу державу на Оріхівському напрямку. Також був у воїнів 128-ї бригади окремої гірсько-штурмової. Це оборона в районах Степногірська. Дуже детально ми обговорили сьогодні з командирами, що саме потрібно, щоб зміцнити наші позиції, як дати більше сил на цей напрямок. Важливий напрямок. Я вдячний за повну інформацію щодо тих складнощів, які є саме тут, в Запорізькій області, особливо в районах Гуляйполя і також напрямок Кам'янського. Завтра я проведу ставку щодо саме цього регіону і саме по захисту Запоріжжя та по всіх піднятих питаннях. Ми детально сьогодні говорили з керівником адміністрації Іваном Федоровим про ситуацію в місті, в області, про підтримку, яка потрібна Запоріжжю. І зараз і людям, і підприємствам, і захист від ударів, передусім захист в області від російських штурмів. Вже я визначив завдання військовим і дамо більше ресурсів на цей напрямок тут, в Запоріжжі, і також в інших наших містах, саме в таких прифронтових, прикордонних. Я вдячний всім, хто забезпечує тут можливість нашим дітям, можливість дітей, наших студентів вчитись, бути в безпеці, бути у спілкуванні з іншими. І сьогодні я був в школі, укритті, діти вчаться, і вони в соціальному колі, і це важливо для українського майбутнього. Росіяни хочуть зробити все, щоб Україна не могла жити. Ми робимо все, щоб дати захист нашій державі. Всім українцям. Я дякую кожному, хто допомагає нам. Я дякую всім, хто на захисті України. Я дякую тобі, Запоріжжя. Слава Україні!
Heroes Slava. And with that, that's the end of the speech from the President of Ukraine, Volodymyr Zelensky, here on this day of the war, 1358. And it's time for us to move on into the second segment of this stream, where we get to talk to each and every single one of y'all. And boy, howdy, folks. What a news segment that was. 2 hours long. 2 hours long, I says. And not only that, 80,000 people have watched this stream within those 2 hours, I says. And so I gotta say, a big thanks to all of y'all so much for watching so far. I hope that y'all stick around, because we are about to be getting on into the question segment, where we get to talk to a lot of y'all, folks who threw in live chats, folks who threw in super chats, and everything else in between, which doesn't exist, because it's just live chats and super chats. It's like a Chick-fil-A menu around here. You either get the grilled chicken or the fried chicken, and that's it. But with that, it is time for us to get on into the questions. So Matthew, what do we got?
All right, so jumping into our final question segment of the night, we are fresh out of polls, but we still love the polls very much. And it sounds like the polls may end up conscripting people before it's over, sort of following suit behind Germany to a certain extent. So the polls are getting busy out there, and we do love the polls very much. But jumping into our super chat questions here, our first one is going to go to Numerian. And Numerian put in a $20 support and said, "Good evening, Armed Forces. And everyone needs a side and a roll with their Costco chicken."
Hey, I love it. I love to hear it. Everyone's got to have one. Everyone's got to have one. Do y'all know how many Costco Salt Lake City has? Like, it's an innumerous amount. Like, I was looking around, and there's a load of them in Salt Lake City itself. And there's even more down in Provo and some up in Ogden. And honestly, folks, you know something that's crazier to think about? Ogden and Provo are pretty much like extensions at this point of Salt Lake City, and from Ogden to Provo, that's a whole 75 miles in length, which is really crazy to think about, because it gives you an idea of scale. 73 miles from end to end, from Ogden to Provo, which I kind of consider to be the greater Salt Lake metropolitan area. In Birmingham, to give you all a perspective here, from end to end, from Trussville to McCalla, which is really like the lengthiest part of Birmingham, that was only 30 miles wide. So there is a lot to Salt Lake City in like this general area. And what is even crazier, folks, is that in Birmingham, Alabama, everyone in the city shared one Costco. And that was it. One Costco for a 1.5 million population city. Only one. In Salt Lake City, I think there's at least 4 within the Salt Lake City proper area here. And then there's more down in Provo, and there's more up in Ogden. And I gotta be honest with y'all, folks, there is just so much in Salt Lake City. I gotta be honest with y'all. I am really in, like, just absolutely 100% behind Salt Lake City. Salt Lake City is a really cool place. Like, if you have not come here, take a trip here. Take a little look around. It is a cool place, actually. It's really nice. It's really clean. There's a lot to do and a lot to see. And also, on top of that, you get to see the beautiful mountains of the promontory front everywhere you go. They're visible from everywhere in the city. Like, even out here, in like the area around the mine, like they're still visible. Like, let me show you this. That is crazy. Just look at that. Visible from every part of the city, all the way up the and down the front. That is just so cool, and it's really pretty to look at when you're driving around too. You know, not distracted driving.
I like this place out here where you dropped it down. It's like it's like a brand new constructed area. There's like nothing out here, like you can tell, but they're building and adding on. So I think it's going to expand out here eventually. But for now, though, it's like wide open. So you can see everything, all the mountain ranges completely around you, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and then here's the Bangirter Highway. And this is at a different, oh wow, it's snow-capped in May. Man, that looks really cool. But it's just such a cool place out here. Man, look at that. All the mountains are snow-capped around here in May.
That's pretty impressive. It looks like their snow starts happening like later, like January, February or something around that point. It looks like November and December aren't really big for that.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it because right now there's like the tiniest amounts of snow on the mountains. I mean, it's like little tiny splotches and that's it, or there's none at all. But like what's crazy is that I think the mountains still have a little bit of snow on them year round because these mountains over here, they have like little patches of snow on them, but they're a lot larger than the ones over here to the east on the promontory front. But there is so much, folks. It's just insane, like how much there is here. And what's even crazier, folks, is that we went to a mall today. I'm not going to say which one for OPSEC reasons, but we went to a mall today. There's like 9 of them in Salt Lake, and they're so nice. Like we had one mall in Birmingham, and it was called the Galleria, the West Chase Galleria, I believe, if I remember correctly. And this was, let's see, where is it? It's down. Hey, here we go. It's this one right here. The river. Yeah, it is the River Chase Galleria. And this place was kind of like rough, actually. It looks pretty nice from the outside, and I'll admit that the inside was really nice. And we used to come here a lot as a kid, but it really went downhill a lot when the last few years we were in Birmingham. Really, not a lot of people went in there, and there were actually a couple of shootings that actually happened in the mall. Like gang related shootings that happened. So a lot of people started to avoid it. And the last time I was in there, like a lot of the storefronts were generally empty. And also like the stores that were there weren't like name stores. It was like, like Bibby's like watch repair store or something like that. It was like the small ones because they were just trying to get anyone in the mall. But the malls out here, like they are crazy, unbelievable. It's like those malls that you see in the propaganda reels that they put out from China, where they're like, here in China, we have like massage chairs in our malls. They have those in the Salt Lake malls too, like loads of them, like for free. Like you can just sit down in them. And it's just crazy, like it's nuts out here. So I do thank you so much for the support for that Costco chicken and also the buns, because the dinner rolls are great. Like they are good, especially when you put butter in them. They're great. So I hope that does address that incredibly well. A humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support. And also, Erling Gruel said they tore down our mall in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin. And that's crazy because the malls out here are like thriving. Like they're actually doing really good. The malls in Alabama were doing terribly. I know back when we lived in Montgomery, well, we didn't really live in Montgomery. We lived a little bit outside of it. But every mall in Montgomery had practically died except for one, which is the East. This is the East Chase Mall right here, which is an outdoor mall. That was the only one that was hanging on. The rest of them had literally all died. So there were no malls left in Montgomery except for that one, and I don't know how that one's doing anymore. But in Birmingham, there were a couple of malls, but really the only one that was within range was the River Chase Galleria. And then here in Salt Lake, there's like loads of malls, an endless supply of them, and they're all doing incredibly good. Which I was like, wow, mall culture is still alive here within the West Coast. And I mean, like, it kind of depends on the time of day that you go in them too. They can be almost abandoned, which the one we went into today was like practically abandoned. When we went in it, there was like no one in there. But the other day when I was in another one, it was packed to the brim. Like there was loads of people in there all over. So really cool, honestly. And it gives you something to get out and go and see and do a little bit, because a lot of people get crammed up in their houses these days and they really don't get out. They get like Uber Eats and they order everything online and it shows up right at their doorstep. Me personally, I like to have places to get out and go and kind of like walk around just to have something to do outside. And Salt Lake City's got plenty of that, whether it's the nature or the city itself. They've got loads of it. It's really neat. So I hope that does address that the best I can. A huge thanks to you so much once again for the kind words and the support and helping us to have accessories to our $5 Costco chickens. And so with that, it is time for us to move on into the next one.
All right, so our next super chat here goes to another channel legend yet again. He throws in the second super chat of the night. It is Bobby, LC39A, and he put in another whopping $100 support. And a huge shout to you, Bobby, for the second massive support of the night. And once again, helping to keep the channel running. And like we used to always say, keeping the lights on. And these days, it's getting more expensive thanks to these mega data centers sucking away the energy. So the energy costs are going up. The lights keeping on is more expensive now. Who would have known? But Bobby said, you can't get rid of me that easily, LOL.
And that's perfectly fine. We don't want to get rid of you, Bobby. We want you to be here. We like everyone being here. And I got to say, a huge thanks to you for support, Bobby43. And one day we'll get rid of you. I'm just kidding, by the way. I'm just playing. But still, a big thanks to you so much for the support, Bobby, and helping this channel to keep on running. Because folks like you are amazing folks who help us to keep this channel running. Nobody has to support this channel, folks. And this is always why we go out of our way to thank every single person who supports the channel. Nobody has to. Supporting this channel is not a compulsory thing that anyone has to do. Yet folks like Bobby and Joe and everyone else who's been supporting the channel tonight, they help us to make this show possible. We are able to keep our lights on and pay our bills and work on this as our full-time job every single day, thanks to amazing folks like Bobby, Joe in the Box, and everyone else who's been supporting the channel tonight. And so I got to thank Bobby massively for that humongous support, because folks like you are not only making it possible for us to do this as our full-time job, but you're making it possible for over 100,000 people every single night to have an Enforcer show to watch. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next super chat goes to Penguins Amok, and he puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Mr. Penguins, for that $20 support. We do appreciate that. And he said, doesn't China have too much Western trade to risk to go after Taiwan, given they lack of any significant gain? And does it caving to U.S. sanctions signal that? And could it be a feint for an attack on Siberia?
And let's take a look here. Chinese export partners. Let's go look at the list. So, list of largest trading partners with the Chinese. You know, honestly, they might not be able to really kick off a war with Taiwan unless they wanted to take severe economic damage, because their top 5 trading partners, well, really top 4 as nations, are all Western aligned nations. Taiwan is actually number 4. And funnily enough, they actually have a trade deficit with Taiwan of about $142 billion. So that could end up being pretty damaging to them. Not only that, Japan is also a huge trading partner with them as well, along with South Korea and then the US of A. Which they have a collective trade of about $700 billion with us, $320 billion with South Korea, $300 billion with Japan, and about $300 billion with Taiwan. So if all 4 of those countries ended up getting involved in the defense of Taiwan, Taiwan obviously being involved, they would be losing a collective trade valued at around $1.6 trillion. Which is a large part of an economy to lose in terms of total trade output. On top of that, if you included the European Union, if they started to sanction the Chinese because of the war with Taiwan, which is a little bit up in the air whether they would or wouldn't, that's another whole $785 billion of collective trade also lost on top of the $1.6 trillion they're already losing. So that means that if you added on the European Union, they would roughly be losing about $2.3 trillion of global trade in terms of imports and exports with Western aligned countries. Crazily enough, when you think about that, that pretty much means that Western countries make up the lion's share of China's total trade. And if that is the case, we could end up obliterating. It would cause a decent amount of damage here in the West, a large amount, make no mistake. But we could also deal a death nail to the Chinese economy practically overnight if they started a war with Taiwan and we went all in on sanctioning them. So for economics reasons, it may actually be quite difficult for them to start a war with Taiwan without suffering deadly economic damage within a very short period of time. Because they can always hang on for a while, but they can't hang on forever taking those kinds of losses. Because that kind of loss to the Chinese economy, if we put that into perspective, they have a nearly $18 trillion GDP. So if they're losing about $2.4 trillion in trade, let me do the math here on that really quickly. 2.4 divided by 18, they would be losing about 13% of the gross domestic product and total trade being lost overnight if they started a war with Taiwan. So probably not the greatest idea for them, because that would be devastating to lose that much of your economy in just a couple of weeks. But with that, I hope that does address that the best that we can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep it running. And I hope that we did a good deep dive there to answer that question, because I think that you have a good point. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
All right. So before we move on to our next super chat, by the way, I want to do something interesting because I had to get into the Nightbot system tonight to be able to fix our announcements to go out in the live chat. And something I noticed that it appears to be Nightbot is now doing is it's actually counting the number of live chats that each viewer makes in the chat, including myself, actually. And I was kind of shocked to see how many live chats I send on a normal daily basis and also over the course of 7 days. So it looks like I'm going to call off the top 10 live chats on our stream, by the way. So if you're called out, that means you're in the top 10s. And also read out how many messages they've sent as well. So I'm number one. Enforcer Matt's number one with 1,204 messages sent over the last 7 days alone, which is crazy. That's 1,200 messages over the course of a week. That's wild. Our second best is AF Kaplan, who sent 679 messages. Northerner, 8364, sent 623. And then Plazoth put in 485. Diane Merriam was number 5 with 416 messages. And let's jump to page 2 here. Let's see, Tom Exman, he put in 416 messages. Then Fiuma, 376. JSM 2996 put in 363 messages. And Digital Watcher put in 347, and Sax2 put in 345. So that's our top 10, by the way. So me and AF Kaplan are chatting like fiends out here. But AF Kaplan, I got double the chats that you've got here. I've got 1,200 messages, which is, honestly, that's wild right there. That's insane. I am like typing like a fiend every single night, and the numbers actually show that. So wild to see. Let's see where Enforcer was at, by the way. So Enforcer is number 17 with 343 messages.
Dang, man.
He's almost tied with Sax2, actually.
Dude, I only messaged during the first 10 minutes of the show when we're in the countdown, and that's it.
Yeah, that's kind of wild. Apparently, put in a pretty good bid.
Dude, I'm putting in the work in those first 10 minutes of the show every night to be number 17, and I'm not even chatting for 3.5 hours. I'm just chatting for 10 minutes every night, about 6 days a week. So that's honestly crazy to be number 17. I was expecting I was going to be like number 50 or something. Also, by the way, since we're on that topic, the YouTube control room that we have actually shows the top fans of the night. Did you know that, Matthew?
Does it now? Is that a new thing?
Yeah, it actually does. I actually show that to y'all here from the control room. So let me pull that over here really quickly and show y'all this. So this, by the way, this prioritized off of everything, including chats and super chats add a great deal in points. So that's why you'll see that Joe in the Box and Bobby are number 1 and number 2. But the top fans of the night is Joe in the Box as number 1, Bobby 43 as number 2, Captain Ted is number 3, Butchie 777 is number 4, Renegade Prepper is number 5, Penguins Amok is number 6, Nemarian 4516 as number 7, Jonathan Garcia is number 8, Crispy as number 9, and Mark Jamison as number 10. Also, some honorable shout-outs to old guards. We've got Ed here, Irish Ed, as number 13. We got Plazoth and Robert Krogan as number 16. Plazoth is number 17. We also have Sundown 64 is number 19. Let's see here. I'm trying to make sure that we point out all of the old guards that I can recognize off the top of my head. I'm sorry if I'm missing a couple of the old guards here and passing you all by. But Bink Master is number 24. Diane Marion is number 26. Tiger Metal Shack is 27. Digital Watcher is 28. Old Warrior is 29. Enforcer Matt is 31. George Tincher at 32. Miss Disa at number 33. Levi Stratton at 34. Space Cat is 36. Caddy the Cat is 35. Tom Exman is 37. Sax2 is number 40. Elka 41. Jessica Byrne 42, Miss Destiny as 46, Big Sky is 45, and Jim Williams is 47, and DB7 is number 50. So really interesting, actually. I didn't know that YouTube did that until I saw that a second ago. And it's really cool to know that it actually is keeping track, and a lot of our old guards are showing up as like top fans in both metrics, both in Nightbot and also in the top fans for the night. So that's actually really cool.
That is kind of cool, actually. And also, my numbers just jumped up to 1,400 messages right now.
Dang, man, that's crazy. Man, honestly.
Man, that's crazy. That's crazy talk, I'm telling you.
Man, I gotta be honest with y'all. That's really cool that he keeps statistics like that. But with that, I hope we addressed that well, and it's time for us to move on to the next one.
All right, so our next super chat here goes to Jonathan Garcia. And thank you very much, Jonathan, for that $20 support as well. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And he said, y'all should start a count of Russian oil refineries hit out of how many are left running. And I'm curious how it's looking for them.
You know, that's an interesting idea, and honestly, I wish we could do that kind of statistics compiling. That would take a lot of time, though, because doing the NATO force composition map is an incredibly daunting task, even with a small amount that we've mapped out of everything that has to be mapped. So we will try and do that hopefully someday, or there probably is someone out there doing that already. And if we can find their list and use it, that would be a great assistance. But maybe we could try that one day, because that would be really cool to see and have that sort of statistic out there. And so with that, I hope that does address it the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And also, I see some people saying, I can't wait to be old guard. And you know, that is, I hope for one day everyone can eventually be an old guard. But for now, the qualifier to be an old guard by channel rule is that you had to be a viewer, and this has actually changed only once in channel history. In channel history, it used to be that you had to be a viewer by day 4 of the war in Ukraine to be considered old guard. Then that was modified a year later to include anyone who was watching the channel within the first month of our coverage. So about day 30 of our coverage, anyone who was watching before that is considered old guard. Everyone after that is not considered old guard, but people who cannot become old guard can still become channel legends by being here all the time and being well recognized in the chat by us and everyone else. That's how you can become a channel legend. Some people, like Miss Destiny, are old guard, and BC Skyman, and a load of other people are old guard because they have been here practically since the dawn of time. So the old guard is really to recognize the folks who have been around for literal eons on the channel, but others can still become channel legends, which is as coveted a title as the old guard. But I hope that does address that well, because if you may not be able to become old guard if you haven't been around that long, but you can still be a channel legend. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Renegade Preppers UK, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, good sir, Renegade Preppers UK, for that support. We do appreciate that. And they said, hey, Enforcer Matt, and hello, LSA. And just a quick question, when could we see the Enforcer running for mayor of SLC, or at least Costco? But thank you guys for the time and effort you dedicate to the war streams and LSA.
And you know, Renegade Preppers, that's interesting, actually. Of running for the mayor of Salt Lake City, or at least the mayor of Costco. Honestly, the mayor of Costco would be a pretty cool title to have. Like getting the keys to the Costco city, that would be pretty neat. But as far as the mayor of Salt Lake City, I don't think I'd ever run for that kind of a position. Although, no disrespect to Salt Lake City, really cool city, and it would be neat to be the mayor. But I don't think I'd ever run for that position. I think I'm going to try and focus entirely on the federal level instead of anything on the municipal or state level. That's generally what I'm thinking at the moment, but we'll have to see. Because I'll be honest with y'all, honesty is not the best policy when it comes to politics. If you're an honest Joe, you usually get steamrolled, and I don't really want to compromise on my morals of being an honest Joe and then start lying to people, you know, to have to try and get ahead in politics. So we'd have to see about that, to be entirely honest, because if something's impossible, I'm not going to promise the world to people, and you have to be able to do that in politics and just lie out your teeth, like, you know, sit there and say something like, I'm gonna fix the economy and make America wealthy again, and then you don't do a damn thing to actually achieve that, and then you just tell everyone the economy's great, and anyone who says otherwise is a liar. I could never do that. That just wouldn't be within my character. I could never do that. I would throw up if I tried to lie to people like that, and know that the whole country is counting on you at that point, being the head of the executive or in the Congress, and you're lying to everyone. Like, I just couldn't do that. So, I mean, we'll have to see if I ever make it in politics, because I would never compromise on the honesty that we have here on the channel to try and make it ahead there. So we'd have to see, but, you know, still, I do thank you so much for the support, Renegade Preppers, and an interesting concept. So I think maybe at best we could shoot for mayor of Costco, but anything beyond that, we'll just have to wait and see. But with that, a big, huge thanks to you so much once again for support, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know, rumor has it that if you want to become a politician, you get a visit from a guy called the Coachman. Like as seen in Pinocchio, the Disney movie, the Coachman comes along and and says, "Hello there, Stromboli. Would you like to go to Pleasure Island?" And apparently, a lot of people decide to go to Pleasure Island, which is a terrible thing because then the coachman returns and happens to blackmail you a little bit later too. So then they have a lot of power over you. So it's an interesting thing the way that works. The coachman he has a way of getting around, even though he's a larger fellow. He has a way of getting around. It's sort of a odd thing.
Well, what kind of business do you work in? I work in the business of kidnapping little boys. Man, that was honestly like the weirdest thing to put in a movie, like even back then. Like, why the hell was that there?
I don't even know. I think honestly, it was kind of like a sneaky way to sort of like warn people about that, or sort of like tell people
But
about
you,
it. I think it was.
but
That type of horrific stuff has existed for a long time. Like it's not new. It's been around for a while.
but you know the thing though, like Disney didn't come up with that. That was in the original Pinocchio story too, like from the 1840s.
Yeah, I mean it's been around for a long time.
Man, I just like how the Fox man even was like, Pleasure Island, but the law, man, he like went off, man. He was like, what the hell? Man, and the other guy was like, now, hush up now. It's nothing bad. The law's on our side. I bribed him. Man, I was honestly, man, that was like messed up as hell when you think back about that, like that part of Pinocchio. Honestly, though, I respect the old Disney movies because they kept it real. I mean, like they would show you like the gritty stuff and the terrible stuff and make it a part of the story, and they wouldn't really pull punches on that stuff. You know, like really any like even with Dumbo, they had that like the drunken stupor scene, you know, where Dumbo got drunk.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, like they had all kinds of crazy stuff in those movies, but I respect them for it because they kept stuff real. Like it wasn't like roses and rainbows. It was kind of messed up to some degree. And you know,
Yeah.
also what was kind of interesting about that though, Matthew, is that if you listen to Walt Disney's sales tactics back in the day, he didn't market to kids, which is what a lot of people thought he was doing. He was actually marketing to the adults because according to Walt Disney in the interviews, he said the adults have money, the kids don't. So you've got to make it something interesting for adults. So that's why he would include like that gritty stuff in it that would keep it real, because he knew that that would appeal to a more adult audience that had the money to spend.
Yeah, well, also, when kids are watching movies and stuff like that, most of the time the parents are watching with the kids. So, like in kids' cartoons, occasionally you hear like some innuendo or something thrown in. The kids won't understand it because they're too young. They haven't been exposed to all that debauchery yet, so they don't understand it, thankfully. But the parents will understand it, so it kind of keeps the parents kind of like semi-entertained in the background a little bit because they'll get the joke or something that was being made, but the kids won't get it, and they shouldn't get it at that age. If the kids are getting it at a young age, that's not good. Something's gone bad wrong. But honestly, they ought to come out with a new Pinocchio, the one that shows the coachman going to prison in New York and stuff like that, and all the security cameras going out and stuff like that, and then the coachman mysteriously vanishes and stuff like that. That ought to show like the new Pinocchio.
Man, honestly, they should show the new Pinocchio. You know, that would be an interesting one. But you know that one ends. Then instead of that one ending with Pinocchio going, "I'm a real boy," it ends with, "Okay, everyone, back to work." Like nothing to see here. Like, man,
Oh no!
man, oh man, I don't know if you've heard some of the stuff that's been going on with that today. I'll have to tell you about it off air because we can't even repeat
I've heard about
what.
it.
Have you heard about what that one person said on their show about it? Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I know what they all said.
Yeah, that was kind of a little wild, honestly. But anyways, with that, I hope that does address that the best we can. You know, and also another thing, folks, I got to say, I saw some people saying I love the old Disney. I love the old Disney because back then, things weren't whitewashed, like to where everything was like safe and sanitary. Like things were kind of rough, like in the old Disney movies. Like they never held back. Like I would even say in more of the modern movies, like even like the Little Mermaid and stuff from like the 90s and stuff, they would hold more punches. It was still kind of like gritty, but they would hold a lot more punches because they were trying to be more sanitized for a modern audience. But back then, they held nothing back. I mean, like they would, like if someone got killed, they got killed. Like Bambi's mother, like just got straight up shot off screen. Like you knew that the mama Bambi had died. Like there was no ambiguity to that at all. And that's what made those old movies interesting because like any story, they're not always peachy clean. There's good stuff, bad stuff, and everything in between. between that happens, and that's what made the old Disney stories so interesting, is that they never really held any punches with storytelling. Because why in the world should storytelling hold a punch? Like, storytelling is really interesting because you can do anything with it. You can get into the macabre, the gritty, the great, the clean, anything in between. You can do anything with storytelling. So why hold back any kind of creativity? Just go all in on it.
Yeah, honestly, I like the wow, that wind is blowing crazy out there. That
I
was loud. It
know it's whistling
sounded like
right now.
sounded like the window was cracking. I was like, what is that? I was like, oh, it's the wind. But I like the old kids cartoons and stuff where there wasn't much talking going on. Like, Tom and Jerry, like the animals were running around. It was just like a bunch of action. And occasionally the cat would say, "Who, me?" or something like that, but it wouldn't really talk. Also, like Pink Panther too, like the old style Pink Panther. Like you just had the little French guy running around chasing the Pink Panther around the place. Nobody was really talking. I don't like all that talking. I just like a lot of I like the fighting. Like we just want the action. We want the Pink Panther taking down the Frenchman. We want the action.
Man, respectfully. Matthew, do you remember like the adventures of Mr. Toad and like Ichabod Crane and all that?
Yeah, I remember that.
You know what's actually interesting about that, man, is that I was doing some like digging in Disney history. Those were made as packets. I didn't know this, but like Mr. Toad is a part of a packet of different short stories, and that one is Mr. Ichabod.
Yeah.
Well, it's Ichabod Crane and Mr. Toad, and it was made right after World War II when they were kind of having in a bit of a financial pinch, and they were still trying to get like full length ish movies out, but shorter stories at the same time. So they would put those out as packet films. I didn't know that. That was actually really interesting to me.
Yeah, some of Disney's best work was their work they did like on those little mini films and stuff like that. At least in my opinion, it was like they had that Adventures of Mr. Toad. Honestly, like the old style like Disney short films that weren't really like franchise characters like Mickey Mouse and stuff like that. They actually did a really good job with that. It seems like they've gotten away from that though in the modern day. Like they really don't do that very much. It seems like Disney's extremely commercial now. They don't really do niche little like animations anymore or anything. At least from in my opinion. It seems like they're more commercialized now. Like when they do something, it's highly advertised, it's highly produced, and things like that. It's not as niche and as like artisan as it used to be.
And they drain the creativity out of it. It's almost a formulaic process because they're trying to make sure that it's as marketable as to as wide an audience as possible. So they have a whole like how they do storyboard creating these days, folks, is just soulless. Like they get everyone into a room, and this is with most studios to make films these days. They get loads of people into a room, the writers, and they have a pretty much a board meeting nearly on how to make it as sterile as possible to be as marketable to as large an audience and as relatable as possible to a large audience as possible, which kills a lot of the creativity in the storytelling because any story is marketable to any audience, truth be told. You just have to make it interesting. Like, all the 80s movies, like they didn't go out of their way to go, what's going to be marketable? Back in the 80s, money was coming into Hollywood pretty easy, especially because of the VHS releases and stuff that were going on then, which made them a killing. So they could do whatever they wanted to. So they did crazy stuff like RoboCop and Rambo and all that. And it was wildly successful because it was just an interesting story, like Alien or Predator or any of those movies. They were just very interesting stories. They didn't have to go out of their way to try and make them as marketable as possible. The interest of the story marketed itself. And Matthew, did you ever watch the tale of Ichabod Crane?
I think I did. Yeah, I think
That was
so.
the Headless Horseman one.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Dude, that one, man, was crazy. You know what was even crazier, man? I didn't know this, but they had Bing Crosby do all of the vocals, except for the female ones, for that short. Like, that one was a part of the Mr. Toad package. And I was like, what? Because Bing Crosby was, like, the most popular singer on the planet during that time. And they got him to do a whole animated short about the Headless Horseman.
That is crazy. Maybe that's where they got the name, Bing for that search engine or something like that, because he did all those voices and, Bing can find everything. So maybe that's why they called it Bing.
Yeah, like maybe maybe that's why. But still, man, I was like, that is nuts. Like, I don't know how much they paid him. I don't think they could have paid him a lot because they didn't have a lot of money during that time. But it's like, why in the world did he volunteer to do that? He could have done anything. And honestly, his work on that was really damn good. Like, there was some really catchy songs that they made in that little short that he did and sang. And I was like, damn, these are good. Like, these are really good. But anyways, Enough about that stuff. I don't even know why we're on this topic, but it's a good one, though. I find it interesting. But, anyways, with that, folks, it is time for us to move on into the next one.
All right, so our next super chat goes to, guess who once again? It is Bobby, LC39A, throws in yet another
Hey!
massive support, another
Damn!
$100 whopping super chat. A whopper, they say, the whopper. And thank you very much, Bobby, for that $100 support once again. And he said, my typing skills are described as search and destroy.
And I gotta say, a big thanks to your support, Bobby. And honestly, that's my typing skills. I make so many typos whenever I'm typing, and I usually have to completely delete messages and retype them, which during the crunch time of the first 10 minutes of the show, that is brutal to have that kind of a problem. But I do thank you massively for support, Bobby43, and I wouldn't feel too bad about that because I am probably way worse off than that. I can hardly type. My fat fingers can hardly move around the keyboard, honestly. But still, a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running, because it is folks like you with that an unbelievable support that helps to make this channel possible. So humongous thanks to you so much once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Butchie777 all the way from the UK, putting in a 20-pound donation. Thank you very much, Butchie, for the 20-pound support, and we will lug that all the way back to Enforcer HQ. And Butchie said, you guys make my coffee mornings and look forward to them every day. And also, it's my birthday, and also happy birthday to Butchie777, by the way. I hope you've had a good one over there. And they said, please take a succulent live chat, and LSA, baby.
And a happy birthday to Butchie777, an old guard of the Lee Spring Army and a channel legend. And I've got to say, a humongous thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope you've had an amazing birthday today. I'm sure it was a good one. I think the weather was good in Britain, if I'm not mistaken, today. So hopefully it was a bright and sunny day out, although it's getting a little bit cold over there too, like it is here, and that you had an absolute blast. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again for the support, and I hope that everyone in the Lee Spring Army wishes Butchie777, an old guard of the channel, a happy birthday. Another orbit around the sun, and another year older, and another year wiser, hopefully. So a huge thanks to you so much once again, and with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to Crispy, who also threw in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Crispy, as well, for that generous $20 support. And I was just checking here. I don't think there was a comment left behind with it, but I'm just double checking because I just want to make sure. I want to make sure that it's right. And I think it is right. But thank you very much, Crispy. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I thank you incredibly for the support, Crispy, and helping this channel to keep running, because folks like you help to make this thing possible and help us to keep it rolling. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 20 from Chef Danny B. And it's good to see you once again, Danny. And thank you very much for that $20 support. And he said, good evening, Enforcers. Chef Danny here. And do you think the Russian ship off the coast of Hawaii is their version of retaliation for our B-52s buzzing their borders? And LLT, LSA.
And that's an interesting idea. I would actually say mostly not, because it's not an armed vessel. It's actually an intelligence gathering vessel, specifically for communications. So this actually doesn't appear to be a show of force. This actually appears to be an attempt to gather some form of intelligence on the United States. And I think that this is largely in conjunction with a greater intelligence gathering operation that was being conducted along with the IL-20 Coots that were spotted near Anchorage multiple times for about 2 weeks, because it may be a larger attempt for the Russians to intelligence gather on U.S. Indo-PACOM abilities. Although technically Alaska is within Northcom's area of responsibility, they still would see that a large amount of assets would be based and operated out of Alaska for Indo-PACOM's area of responsibility. So with that, I hope that does address that the best that I can, at least in my opinion, but I think that this is an intelligence gathering operation and a larger one that has a lot of moving parts involved. But still, a massive thanks once again. I hope that does address that well. And also, I saw some people still talking about the modern Disney stuff, and I'll tell you all this. This is a little bit interesting, but Disney, like a lot of people say that Disney's gotten really politicized with the storytelling, which I'll agree, but everyone these days does that. They either lean more towards the left or more towards the right, and the reason why is because recently, within the past 15 years or so, identity branding has started to become the big thing that most companies are doing. So instead of just buying a product, you're buying an identity along with that product, something to attach to with a personality. And that is something that I think is honestly detrimental to most companies' images, because I don't know why in the world a company should inherently lean to the right or the left when all they're really doing at the end of the day is moving a product and making money off of that, and that's it. But you'll see that in a lot of media that comes out these days. There has to be a political lean to it because they're trying to they're trying to market themselves to a certain identity brand to make money off of that market. Because here's how they're looking at it nowadays: they can't make something to appease everyone, because if they make a neutral story, and this is actually how it works these days, is that if they make a neutral story that just tells a story, some people on the right are going to be pissed off because it's going to have something in it they don't like, or some people on the left are going to be pissed off because it has something in it they don't like, or everyone's going to be pissed off because it doesn't particularly cater to their version of identity branding. So what they have to do is that they have to pick a side. So in some area within the company, they had a meeting most likely, and they figured out marketing wise they could probably make more money if they went with the one group that they generally market to nowadays instead of the other. And so they picked that and they stuck with it. That's generally what is happening nowadays. You can see that in any company. I mean, think of any company out there right now and think about, do they have a political affiliation? The answer 99% of the time is going to be yes, and it's going to lean to the left or the right. I think that's just absolutely stupid. Like, why in the world, when you buy a coffee or razors or a movie, why in the world does it have to have some kind of a political attachment to it? I don't really understand that, because at the end of the day, you buy razors to shave, you buy coffee to drink. And this is what I gotta say, folks, because I'm not saying this one way or the other. I'm saying this across the board. Why in the world is it that when you buy a coffee, you've got to be a hardcore countryman who beats ass, or if you buy a razor, you've got to be sensitive and connect with all the people of the world? Like, why the hell is that the deal? Like, why is that the case? Why in the world does every single thing have to have a political attachment to it? Coffee is a coffee, a razor is a razor, and a show is a show. Like, there's nothing political about that. It is what it is. It's just a good product or it isn't. And I absolutely hate the identity politics branding stuff. I generally try and avoid companies that identity brand like that as much as I can, no matter whose identity branding it is. I just find it absolutely annoying. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to Gerald Everett, who puts in a $20 support. And thank you very much, Gerald, for that support as well. We do appreciate that. And they said, I see the salinity of Lake Monteville Aquifer is only 5% the salinity of the GSL, and put a desalination plant out in the flats, and fresh water to SLC, and brine to the Salt Lake, and surplus steam to the air to condense in the mountains.
And I thank you for the support, and that's an interesting idea. But generally, I think that they need to be a lot more careful out here with how they use water, or generally how they're conserving it, because the Salt Lake drying up would be a really bad thing. It would be like the Aral Sea drying up, really, for the impact in the region. So hopefully the water conservation will be done a little bit more effectively, any way that they want to split that hair. And I'm not really the greatest environmental scientist, but I think that they should get the greatest minds in environmental science from around the country to figure out how to try and conserve the water here in the Salt Lake area, or really in the state of Utah as a whole, and then spread that throughout the rest of the Southwest. Because if one thing is done well in Salt Lake City, they do city management amazingly well, and hopefully they can take that amazing application of city management that they do and move it into other applications like water conservation and such things that are important to the function of the city in the long term. So with that, I hope that does address that incredibly well, and a huge thanks to you once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it running. So a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And also a huge shout out to Cameron, who put in a 10. And Cameron said, I appreciate you guys, and thanks LOC, I like the video.
Hey, and thank you so much for liking our videos. The one that was put out today was put out by Matthew, and it looks like a lot of people actually enjoyed it. And I gotta thank you so much for enjoying the videos and our streams, because we put a lot of work into all of it all together. So a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on. Wait a minute, Matthew, could you hear that gulp?
Yeah, I could hear it.
Ah, dang it!
That's what I said, gulp.
Man, I was hoping that the microphone wouldn't pick that up. I was kind of like hiccuping a little bit, and I was trying to hide it. So hopefully that goes away here soon. But still, with that,
did you just do that to Nightbot?
No.
The hell?
Man, you put that
You
in.
see it?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Like, what is Nightbot? Is Nightbot joining up?
Man, you did that, didn't you?
I might have, honestly.
Man, that's man,
I watched
shoot,
this
man.
drive.
Listen, we're gonna stop terror around the world. Now watch this drive, man. Honestly, man. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and our next one here goes to none other than, guess who? It is going to be Mark Jamison, and he put in a 10.
Hey,
And thank you very much, Mark, for that support. And he said, good evening.
and good evening to you. I hope you've been doing well, and we've been doing quite well ourselves. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because it is folks like you who help to make this channel possible and help us to keep this thing running. And so with that, we're on to the next one.
And this one goes to Coca-Cola Mandate, who puts in a 10. And big shout out to you for the support, by the way. And also a big shout out to Crispy for that $10 support as well. And we do appreciate that. And Enforcer, what say you?
And we gotta thank the both of y'all for the support. Y'all didn't throw in comments, but we're still greatly appreciative of it because that support helps the Leaf Spring Army and the Enforcer world to keep going around. And so a huge thanks to y'all once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Steinman, who puts in a 10. They said, slight correction, felons can vote in the U.S. It depends on what state they live in. And for example, in Michigan, a felon can vote upon completion of their sentence.
Interesting. I actually didn't know that. In Alabama, if you were a felon, you couldn't vote at all. So that's actually quite interesting. I didn't know that was a state-to-state thing. I thought that was generally a federal thing. But then again, at the same time, all of the elections are managed from a state-to-state level. So that is a little interesting there. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for sharing that. That's actually news to me. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And also another big shout out to Crispy, who threw in another super chat. And big shout out to you, Crispy, for that $10 support and the super sticker saying thank you. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a big thank you to you, Crispy, for being here tonight and being extra crispy. We thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep running, because folks like you are going to make it possible for this channel to hit 517,000 subscribers, which is really close to happening right now. So hopefully it'll happen here soon. But a humongous thanks to you so much once again. I hope that is addressed that well. And with that, we're on to the next one.
And we also have a 10 from Ed. And Ed put in that 10 and said, LSA Irish Ed here, and wanted to thank you for remembering my eldest daughter, Laura, going to Temple. And now my youngest daughter, Bailey, wants to go to Temple as well. And you really care about the LSA.
Oh, really? That's actually really interesting. Yeah, I remember everything everyone says from the chat, like super chat wise and even live chat wise. I try and remember it all because unlike other people who run YouTube channels and they look at their viewers as actual numbers, I like to think of y'all as people. I don't get to meet a lot of y'all, sadly. So, you know, generally, y'all really are just numbers and names on a screen to a degree. But at the same time, I like to know about y'all because y'all are the folks who are a large part of the Leaf Spring Army. Y'all are a part of the movement that this channel has. And not only that, y'all are a huge part of our viewership and who we get to talk to every single night. So we try and remember, I know myself personally, I try and remember every single fact that anyone tells me about themselves as much as I possibly can. I know Matt does that a lot too, and he probably does that even more so because he is talking to you all in the live chat practically every single night in the thousands.
I know everything about everybody. Everything.
Man, like he knows everything. He's the orb. But beyond that, that's really interesting to hear that she's going to be going to Temple as well. And hopefully they'll be doing quite well indeed, I'd hope. But of course, it's great to hear from you once again, Irish Ed, and I hope you've been having a good time here tonight. And I hope that your health is still doing generally well. And so a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And I hope that addressed that the best we can. And you know, folks, a lot of people would think that that they're probably looked at as another name and another number. A lot of people look at that when they're in a live chat, especially on a show like this where there's like 14.5 thousand people here at the peak or 15,000 tonight, and there's still 8.5 thousand people here. But we can remember something about a lot of people who are here pretty much every single night. I know a little tidbit and a little fact about every single old guard that's been here for years. Like we know that BC Skyman goes on a good deal of hunting trips. He's an avid hunter. And also he has a really cool car collection and a gun collection. And then we know that other folks here have all kinds of interesting stuff going on. Like hell, even some people who are no longer with the channel, we remember things about them as well. like what they did for a job or what they did as a hobby or an interest. I always try and make sure to remember everything I can, speaking for myself personally, because I really do like to think that the folks who are watching are not just viewers, but they're to an extent friends of the channel, friends of Matthew and me. And so a big thanks to y'all once again for always being here, and I hope that a lot of y'all stick around for a long time, even farther, if you just made it here, so that way we can get to know a little bit about all of the new folks that are here. And so with that, and also, I just saw Fuma say, you know that I'm crazy. No, I know that you like railroading. I know that you like railroading, and that you also like Warhammer. I know that. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to play a video game in a while. Well, at least a video game like that in a while, or find the time to be able to play with other folks. But still, I do know that about you, and I also know that you have a very interesting amount of regional history about the Rhineland area, which I find really neat. But still, with that, we are on to the next one.
I could tell you a little bit of something out of pretty much everybody in the live chat that's been here for a long time. I could pretty much tell you a little bit about them and sort of give you some facts. If it was just anybody in the live chat you just like looked at that's been here for a little while. Now, if you're new, I probably don't know much about you because you've just gotten here. But for the folks that have been here for months and months and months, I talk to y'all every single night in the live chat. So I could probably tell you at least a pretty decent bit about you, probably, just from the things you've told me and also just from seeing the live chat all the time. So it's really wild that I actually know probably thousands of people in the live chat. It's kind of crazy, actually. Kind of cool, too. But jumping into our next one here, this one goes to none other than Drops Trades LLC, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much, good sir, for that support. He said, when you're ready, I'll teach you how to trade with OPM. And of course, you know what OPM is.
I actually don't.
You don't know? Do you have any idea what it could mean?
I don't even have an inkling.
Other people's money.
Hey!
That's what it means.
It's time for us to start enforcing university. For only $50 a month, you too can become a hustler like me. Man, that's how you do it. That's how you do it right there. And then you give the $50, and then the answer is going to be, I make a living off of suckers like you. Like every other university out there like that. Honestly, folks, I'm just going to give you all my own conventional wisdom. Never subscribe to an online university of any type that tells you that they're going to tell you the secrets of the universe and how to make $1 million. Don't do it. I've never been a part of that. I don't like the concept behind that, because if you think about it, you're paying them money, and tons of people are paying them money to get the answer on how to be a millionaire, but in the process, whoever's running that school is becoming a millionaire on your dollar. That's the answer right there. It's just to run a get rich school or something, and then have a whole bunch of people pay for it. That's literally how people get $1 million. That's the answer right there. So my conventional wisdom there: don't ever subscribe to one of those. Just work really hard and do something. Get into something that you really love. And if you love something, you'll figure out how to make it. I can promise you on that. Or you'll die trying, one or the other. I don't know which one happens first.
Honestly, like to address Drop Trade's super chat, I'll be honest with you, Drop Trades, I respect it. Like if you are a trader, like I respect that. For me, I've looked into it before. Me personally, I'm of the belief of the index fund type of investing, not the short-term trading, because I've seen studies before where people will go and try to like trade, or they'll try to outperform the S&P, like a large fund like that, and it never really works out. Like it may be short-term gains or something, but it always sort of like balances out with the gains of the S&P, which in my opinion, I would rather just like put the money in like an index fund or something like that, me personally, and just let it sit there. But even that these days is kind of risky, because the stock market's so volatile these days. Even something that's usually stable like an index fund is kind of a little bit, iffy. It fluctuates pretty decently these days, but historically over time, it looks like it does gain. So, I mean, if you have the time to wait and you're young, then you could do that. But you'll always consult your financial advisor, folks. I'm not a financial advisor. I don't even have a background in finances. I'm just a layman. And also, I'm not even good at math. So, I need an accountant, okay? I need an accountant badly, because if I don't have an accountant, I have to count, I'm in deep trouble. So that's just me.
Honestly, man, I have a great accountant. He's called the Count, and he goes, $1. It takes him a long time to do the math, but he eventually gets it done.
Yeah, I mean, he could. Why does your accountant suck blood?
Because he's a politician. Also, drop trades. I know you're not trying to scam us. I know you're just like kidding around and giving a little bit of advice. Me personally, though, my financial philosophy is very, very simple, probably to a fault. I just believe in working hard, making money, and then saving it and putting it in the bank. That's my entire financial philosophy. There really isn't anything more to it than that, which I know some people are going to say is actually financially dense, and it really is. But that's just how I look at it. I just think that hard work and putting money behind you in the bank is the way to go. Bad philosophy, honestly. Probably better ways to make your money work for you than just putting it in a bank, but that's how I do it. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Dusty, and Dusty puts in a $10 support, and thank you very much, Dusty. He said, will Venezuela be the match that lights the fuse for World War III?
Nah, I don't think so. It'll just end up being a little regional war, like a lot of them end up being, and that chapter will open and close itself without really any extra strings attached to create a larger war. So I'd say a regional war, and there's really no chance of that turning into a world war, in my opinion. But a huge thanks to you once again for support, and I hope that does address that well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
You know what's kind of wild? I was just sitting here thinking about that. As I was thinking about the statement, I was like, if I have to deal with numbers, I'm in trouble. I'm not horrible with numbers, but it's kind of weird. One thing I've noticed with people, and I can tell this with myself as well, some people are really good at like numbers data, like they're really good at number crunching and data that involves math like that. And then there's the other group of people that's really good at, I guess, analyzing like text and also patterns and things like that in different types of data that's not numerical. I would fall in the camp of people that can parse a lot of data quickly that's not numerical. For whatever reason, my brain's never really meshed with numbers. I did decent, like I got A's in math, like everywhere I was, like high school, college, etc. I got A's in it, but I was never really like, it wasn't natural to me. It was a huge learning curve. So I'm good at the other type of data, like textual, but not numerical. It's kind of weird.
Yeah, it really is weird. There is like two groups of people out there. People who do really good at generally reading and public speaking, that kind of comes with it. And then the people who are really good at math and they're not good at public speaking. It's really just one or the other. And it's even more interesting when you think about it, man, because there are a load of jobs out there, loads of them, and they really come down to those two things: being good at reading and talking, or being good at math, and that's about it. Really, honestly, you could break that down into three: being good at math, being good at talking, or being good at reading, one or the other. But that is really honestly kind of crazy when you think about it. You can really break it down into those three, and you just kind of have to find which one of the three you're the best at, and then go for it. Luckily, we're good.
Yeah, I think thankfully for us, like we're thankfully for this category of news that we do, you have to be good at pattern recognition to be able to realize what's going to happen next and make viable predictions about what things are going to happen in geopolitics. So that's a good thing to be good at. For the number crunching people, I'm sure that there are certain things, like for example, equipment losses and things like that. That requires to be good at numerical data. More of the, I guess you could say, I'm not sure how to describe it. I guess numerical analysis of things, that's pretty good. Me personally, my strong suit's always been pattern recognition. That's always been my strong suit, pretty much. So that happens to work out for geopolitics and political science a lot, is being able to be good at that. Also, being able to read people, that's another big thing too in political science, because obviously the science of politics is reading people. So if you're good at that, then you'll be pretty decent at the political side of things too, at least somewhat.
Yeah, that's honestly, I'm pretty good at reading and analyzing and talking too. I think we both have the same skill set on that, really, just in a different way. You did political science, I did history. And it's really interesting, folks, because like way back in high school, which once again, that's not way back, that's just a little while ago, but back in high school, that was really when the presentations started to become a big deal. Like the speaking ones that you do in front of the class. And I would always, like me personally, I know Matthew would do this too. We would just crush those. Like if we were a part of a group presentation, we would destroy them. Like it would be like hundreds and stuff each time. Never like I think the lowest I ever made on one of those group presentations was like a 98 or a 99. It was always great. And people would always kid around because, like I would just get up there in front of a class. I would just belt stuff out like a pro and not really hesitate or pause. And a lot of people were like, man, you'd be great as like a radio host or a TV host or something. And I would always joke and be like, yeah, whatever. But it's kind of crazy because that ended up panning out to actually be the case. And it's really weird because another thing that I gotta say, this is the weirdest thing when you think about it, and nobody thinks about it this way, but I think it's true. Public speaking is a skill upon itself, really, is the best way to put it. It isn't really something that comes with something else. Like, you're not good at accounting and good at public speaking, you're just good at public speaking. Because public speaking is something that is actually kind of difficult to get a grip on, and some people just aren't good at it. Like, they just are not good at it. Like, I'll admit, I'm not good at math, but the people who are good at math may be terrible at public speaking. And there really is no in between with that sort of a deal, which is crazy because some people really get scared when they talk in front of large crowds online or in person, and they just can't do it. They freeze up and they stop. And like they'll talk really timidly, or they'll talk really quietly, or they're not confident, or they just lose it in front of a crowd and they can't focus and talk because they're so busy on paying attention to how many people there are. And it's just really so weird how like public speaking in of itself is pretty much a skill and an occupation of its own.
You know, public speaking is something that really doesn't come natural to pretty much anybody. Some people are better at it than others, but it's human nature to not want to be the center of attention. That's sort of human nature because usually the brain recognizes a large, like, for example, if you're standing in front of a large group of people and they're staring all at you, your brain tells you, uh-oh, like there's a lot of eyes on me, like I could possibly be in danger. That's what your brain naturally tells you. Some people, though, mainly extroverts, they find that to be energizing. So they'll see the people looking at them and stuff, and they, oh, look, I'm the center of attention, and they run with it. But the back of their brain, if they really think hard enough about it, they will find the thing about, oh, wow, there's a lot of people looking at me. It'll kick in. But, you know, people that are more introverted, they see all the eyes, and it's not so much about getting energy from it. It's more about, how do I get out of here and still have my skin intact and still be able to walk away from this with my dignity intact? That's what it's more like for them. So it's just, honestly, you can get over like public speaking fears. Like it's a real deal, and I totally understand it completely. I've done good at public speaking. Like in the past, like for example, I led the JRTC inspection for the entire state inspection for the program, and we scored the highest in the history of the program. So I was leading the whole public speaking for that. But it's not something that I seek out actively. Like, oh, I'm just dying to get up there and go public speaking. I'm like, not really. But I'm decent at it when I do it, though. That's the thing. But some people just really hate it. Like, some people really despise it, and I get that.
Yeah, honestly, I would like. I got to be honest though. Matthew and me are kind of like different sides of the coin on that. I've never really found that much of an issue with public speaking. As a matter of fact, it's fine to me. Like I don't really like. To me though, it doesn't really matter who I'm talking to. In between the two of us, I'm like extremely extroverted. I'll talk to anyone, and I'll like talk for hours if they're willing to. But I've never had an issue with it. And so whenever they were like, okay, come up in front of the class and present, I'd be like, okay, that's fine. I was like, I'll knock this thing out of the water. And I'd knock it out of the water, and then I'd just go sit back down. And some people were like, damn, that was pretty good. And I'd be like, oh, thanks. That's nice. Like, that's really nice of you to say, or something like that. I just never really have had an issue with it. No matter who it was or how many people were there. One thing, honestly, it was really more so exciting to have nights like we've had on the biggest ones, like when we had 130,000 people here live one night when the U.S. was bombing Iran. That was honestly exhilarating to me. Some people would find that incredibly scary that many people are paying attention to them. I thought it was really cool. So I guess
I like that. Me personally, I found that I like to have a little bit of anxiousness about it because the thing is, here's the way it always works. And for people that have never really been into it, the way it's usually worked for me is going into something before you start public speaking or speaking to a large crowd or something like that. You're tensed up, your anxiety's running, your adrenaline's going. But once you start speaking though, and you sort of like get a minute or two into it or something, that fades away, and it's more of like a euphoric sense. Like, oh look, you're sort of like rolling through it now. It's working out, and the adrenaline's going away. But it's like you get an adrenaline rush from it. If you're someone who finds it natural, your adrenaline really never kicks in the first place. So it's just kind of like, just speaking again, it's all over with. But if you find it to be a little bit of an adrenaline rush, it kind of becomes addicting after a while. You're kind of like, oh, that's actually like a kind of a rush to do that. And then you kind of calm down as you get into it.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is that I am never nervous to talk on any night on the show. Even at the beginning when it just started, it was really more so exciting to know that there were a lot of people listening than it was scary. So instead of being motivated, at least for me personally, more so by the anxiety or the fear of having to talk to a large number of people, it actually excites me to a degree that that many people would care to listen to what I have to say. So I really put a lot into it. Like y'all might notice this a little bit, but whenever we have absolutely ginormous nights where there's like 50,000 people live or 30,000 or 100,000, which is well out of our league usually, I lock in. And I lock in because I'm extremely excited to do it, and I'm thinking if a lot of people are willing to listen to what I have to say personally, I'm going to go absolutely Walter Cronkite reporting mode and get this down to a perfection T. Instead of just usually down to a T like we normally do, I'll go the full 9 yards to make sure that people are like, this has got to be the greatest news show on the planet, because I'm just excited to be able to talk to those folks, and if they're willing to give their time, I'm willing to give them everything I've got to make sure that they're listening to something good, at least as much as I can, as far as I can. I know, Matthew.
Also, it helps to be talking about something that you're interested in too. If you're not interested in it whatsoever, it becomes a hell of a lot harder to public speak about something you're not interested in at all. At least for me, like if you're telling me to like give a presentation on something like, let's say, let's do something I'm not interested in at all. Like, for example, biology, like get up in front of like 50 people and give a lecture about how the cells produce energy or something in the human body. I would be like, are you crazy? Like, I'm not getting up there and talking about that. I'm like, I'm not interested in it for one. And number two, I'm like, I don't want to get up there in public speaking in the first place about something I'm not interested in. So that would be a bit tough. But if it's something like this, for example, like geopolitics, I can talk about this all day. Like, this is my thing. This is my whole background, political science, things like that. So this is exciting to me. I'm like, this is something I'm actually interested in. But you know, if for example, Enforcer, if somebody told you to get up and go talk about, go talk about buses, well, actually you're interested in that, so you actually actually go for that. If someone told you to get up and talk about the aquatic environment of fish in the Salt Lake River or something like that, just making up something, by the way, you'd probably be like, not really.
Oh no, actually, I'll find interest in anything. Like, unless if it's math, that's one thing I just can't even get into because I just really don't understand the concept of math beyond like pre-calculus. Anything beyond that's completely beyond me, and pre-calculus is really stretching it at that. But anything I could get interested in, like if you told me to go up in front of a crowd and tell them how a car engine worked, or tell them about cars, I'll research cars and find great interest in it, and then go talk about it. Or if I don't know a lot about something, the other thing I'll do is if I'm around someone that knows a lot about something, like say if I went out to the Bingham mine here in Salt Lake, which one day I am, and I don't really know a lot about mining or mineral extraction or really ore extraction, I'll just sit there and listen to that guy, and I'll just ask as many questions as I can to figure out what it is. And then after I get that, I will retain it all and then go out and unload that on people who want to hear about it, because I just find it really interesting to learn about anything. Like I could, like the body, forks, I could tell you all about the history of forks and spoons, because at one point I was like, what the hell is that? And I'll just look into it. And so I could really talk about anything with a great deal of interest, because if someone was like, I want to know about it, I'm like, damn, they really count on me to know about it. And then I'll find it really interesting because I'll be like, man, I bet they're going to be really excited to hear about all of these really interesting little facts and details about anything, even if it's obscure or mundane. I just find it always interesting. That's usually why I'm good at rabbit holing here on the channel. Like, I know I rabbit hole about trains a lot because that's one of my interests, but I could rabbit hole about most anything. Like, for example, when Gunfox brings up space, I don't really know a lot about space exploration when he throws in the super chat, but it's interesting though, because he finds it interesting. And so I'll look through the Wikipedias when we're on air as quick as I can and find something interesting about it, because if it's interesting to him, there's got to be something neat to know about it. Like, that's how I look at everything. So I'll find interest in it on the spot, just because someone else finds it interesting. So I find that pretty easy. Like I could talk about most anything.
Yeah, the one thing I find fascinating is this, and this isn't like, I'm not taking shots at people that are like, talkers or, extroverts or anything like that. Me personally, I'm not ashamed of it. I'm personally an introverted person. I don't usually go around just like, talking a whole bunch. I usually talk when there's a purpose behind it, but I don't just go around, like, I'm not like meeting everybody and anybody. Like, it's just not the way I operate. But I love to meet people, but it's just, I'm not running around starting conversations with, thousands of people or something like that. It's just not the way I am. But one thing I found interesting, happening is most of the time, the loudest person in a room, the person that's talking the most and nonstop, usually that person is not the brightest in the room, not taking shots at them or
What the
anything,
hell?
but not taking shots at you, by the way, and and also you're not the loudest in the room either. I'm talking about the people that are like literally like they are attention getters. I'll put it that way instead of being crass or something like that. But they're attention getters, and they won't stop talking. Those people never are quiet long enough to actually absorb any information, because when you're in an environment, you need to be quiet long enough and listen to be able to absorb information from it. That's the mark of a good person that can analyze their environment. So if someone's talking nonstop, they can't take in any information. So that's a huge problem. So that's always been my experience. At least I've always seen that generally amongst like groups of people.
Man, I've been a master yapper my whole life. What are you trying to say? Like, what are you trying to say here? But I'm just kidding.
But you're quiet long enough to, like, for example, it's fine to talk, but like if you take a step back and you go into quiet observation mode for a second, you start looking around the room and you start realizing, okay, that person over there seems like maybe they're like a little bit manipulative, a little bit. You start being able to like sort of read things off of people a little bit better, which is helpful because, obviously when you're dealing with people, you need to sort of like suss out who you're dealing with, especially if it's something serious like business related or something like that. You need to be able to take in information a little bit. So it's good to be like sort of in the middle. Like if you're an introvert, it's better to sort of like move yourself toward the middle of the spectrum, to be in between an extrovert and an introvert if you possibly can. It's better to be in the middle than left or right or too far one way or another.
Possibly so, possibly. I mean, hell, I made a career off of yapping endlessly. So like, I guess sometimes the loudest person in the room might be doing pretty okay. But anyways, with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one here goes to Daryl Barkhouse, who put us in a $75 donation. And thank you very much, Daryl, for that $75 support. And Daryl said, LSA and hugs.
Hey, and LSA, and a big thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep on running, Daryl. That's humongous support, and it's always good to know that the folks up in Canada are a big part of the Leaf Spring Army, just like the rest of it. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. I hope that does address that incredibly well. And with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, so our next one here goes to Scott Binkley, who puts in a 7, and thank you very much, Scott. And he said, it's time for Ukraine to flood the Russian economy with counterfeit rubles like the UK did to Argentina during the Falkland Island War.
That's an interesting idea. Maybe they could do something like that and see how it goes. But a huge thanks to you so much once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. Because if it wasn't for folks like you, we wouldn't be able to make this channel possible and keep it rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
Also, by the way, I see some people adding their 2 bits in here. Jam Fan said, I always tell people I'm only smart enough to realize how much I don't know. That's also another way to quickly realize if someone is like, and when I say intelligent, I'm not like trying to say, I'm not the most intelligent person, I'll admit that. But you can tell someone's dumb, though, if it's someone if you ask them a question about anything and they always have an answer for it and they're super confident and they're not willing to listen to anybody's opinion outside of their own, that's a huge sign that someone's usually really stupid. We've dealt with a lot of people like that, not here on the channel, but in real life. There's been a lot of people, you'll ask them something that they generally don't know about, but they'll all of a sudden become an expert on it, like just in the moment. And it's like, wait a minute, it's like you don't even really like know about that, do you? It's like you'll be thinking that in your head, and they'll still be going on super confident about whatever they're saying that they don't know anything about. And the catch is when someone says, well, wait a minute, I thought it was this way. They'll be like, no, you're wrong. You don't know what you're talking about. And that's a huge problem in today's society. Everybody wants to be an expert in everything, and they're not willing to listen to any alternative opinions at all. It would be fine if they were wrong and they were corrected and someone told them, well, it's actually not that way. And they're like, oh, okay, I'm sorry, I got that wrong. But, stupid people, they're never able to be corrected pretty much ever.
And that's actually something that's wildly interesting because on our channel, like when someone asks a question that I just don't know the answer to, I'll just say I unfortunately don't know the answer to that at the moment and move on. Other people, like this is actually something very interesting in the YouTube world, is that some people who run YouTube channels like this, and it's not a lot of them that we deal with at least anymore, but some of them act like they are some form of a pariah or something where they cannot be wrong, so they have to give an answer to everything to keep up this stage presence or illusion that they know everything, so you ought to count on them for everything. And I don't believe in that at all, even if it loses us people in the end on the show. I don't believe in giving people answers that we actually don't know. And that's also something that's so funny, is that then some people will use that against you. Like, like if someone asks something on the show and I'm like, I don't know, let me pull that up really quickly, and then I'll try and pull it up on air, and then some people go, look at this idiot, he doesn't know everything like I'm supposed to. And I'm like, well, it would be better to say I don't know and try and find an answer for that question, rather than say that I know and I don't, and then just lie to someone about the answer.
Well, I've always been fascinated by like the psychology behind things like that. Like, what makes a person so insistent upon being right? Like, when someone will not stand to be corrected, like if, for example, if they get something obviously wrong, and then the person realizes, oh crap, I got that wrong, and they know that in their head, but yet at the same time though, they won't acknowledge it verbally that they got something wrong. It's like, what is wrong with the personality that they can't just simply concede and say, okay, you got me, I was wrong? It's like, is it a personality thing? Is it like the way they grew up in their childhood? I've always been fascinated by that kind of thing like that. It seems to be, honestly, it seems like everything kind of roots back to childhood. Like if a child grew up in an environment where they're always invalidated, they'll typically grow up to be someone who will not concede anything, because it's the fear of being wrong, essentially, like ephemeral drift said in the live chat. It's something rooting back to childhood. Pretty much every personality trait roots back to your younger years, at least from what I've seen. I'm no psychologist, but I've read people that do know what they're talking about, and they seem to think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't really read a lot on psychology. I always just try and deduce it. And I will be honest with you all, psychology is something I don't really know a lot about. I took a 101 class on that, and it was the damn hardest class I had ever taken in college for my bachelor's degree. And that completely killed my interest in psychology, to be entirely honest with you all, because the tests were absolutely stupid. Like, there would be a theory. This is how this like goofy professor did the test, and I'll say they're goofy because their tests were absolutely stupid. You would read the unit, and it would talk about things, different sorts of psychological theories, and it'd be like, oh, that's interesting, and I would get down the gist of what the theories are, and then the test would come up, and it would be like, the monkey Abel, in one picture in the textbook on page 97, was standing up and walking. What color was the button on the left side of its overalls? I'd be like, what type of stupid question is this? Like, I read about the theories. I didn't memorize what the damn pictures looked like out of the textbook. And like that class, I almost got a C in. Like, I was very dedicated to getting A's and B's, and we both graduated magna cum laude. And that class I almost got a C in because it was asking stupid questions like that on the test. Never once in that class did I get asked about an actual psychological theory. It was always something stupid. Like on chapter 1, paragraph 4, how was the paragraph structured? Was it 5 sentences or 6? And I was like, what type of stupid question is this? Like, this makes no sense at all. This isn't even having to do with psychology. This is just trying to trip people up on stupid, trivial nonsense and making them memorize stuff that doesn't even count. And it was one of those.
Did they make you take the the ink blot test or whatever, where you look at the ink blot and they say, what do you see, and you're supposed to describe what you see? Did you do that?
No, they didn't do that. This was one of those hard ass professors that acted like college has got to be tough as hell, and then they would make it tough as hell by not even playing the game and actually teaching anything. They just make it tough. That was that professor.
Interesting. I don't think I had that one. My psychology professor was actually pretty decent for the most part. Nothing too crazy. But some of those tests out there, like I wonder how effective some of those tests are. Like the one where you kind of like someone said the Rorschach test or something. Yeah, the Rorschach test is what it's called. Say what?
It's like the Rorschach test. If I'm
I think the Rorschach test. But it's like you're supposed to look at it or something, and certain people will see like one thing. I think like a butterfly or something, and the next person will see like a devil or something. I don't know exactly what the like differences were between the two, but it's allegedly. I think the purpose behind it is they're supposed to see if a person is more positive or negative minded or something. And let me pull that up real quick, because actually I don't want to just misquote this here. Let's see here. Rorschach ink blot test. So yeah, it's a psychological assessment that uses 10 symmetrical ink blots to evaluate personality, emotions, and thought processes. So interesting. So they're supposed to look at the blot. So it can be used to develop and diagnose schizophrenia, but it's been controversial. Let's see. Yeah, I can see where it might be controversial. Have you stare at the ink blots and say, okay, this person's a schizophrenic based on the ink blot? I don't know, but let's see here. I don't know. Like some of these things right here, I wonder if they're actually as good as they say they are. Like it's kind of hard to tell. I feel like these days, like people have gotten to such extremes these days, at least a good number of people, that you can kind of tell just by interacting with people for like 5 minutes or so, you can kind of get an idea of if there's like something that's a little bit off these days. You can kind of get an idea of it pretty much within the first 5 minutes. You won't know exactly what's wrong, but you'll have an idea like this person might be a little bit on the sociopath side, they might be a little bit on the psychopath side or something like that. You can kind of get a gist for it. And I feel like social media has kind of brought us to extremes at this point, so you can really see it. It really stands out now because it's brought people to be a lot more extreme.
I'll be honest with you, Matthew. I don't know about you, but you can tell a lot about people by looking into their eyes and looking at how their eyes look. Like I don't know about y'all, but you can tell like a psychopath based off of just how their eyes look. At least to me, like I can see somebody like, oh yeah, they're a little wild. Like you can just tell by the eyes.
Yeah, sometimes. Some people, though, some people just have blank eyes. I guess that tells you something too. If their eyes are kind of blank, that would probably, tell you something. But I don't know. Like that's one way. Like I'll be honest, I've seen some people. You look in their eyes or something like that, and you're like, something's bad wrong with that person. Like you sort of like something's off. But some people just give off like a bad like aura about them, if that's what people say is an aura. I remember back when I was a paralegal for a while, but before I went to law school, I went to one of the prisons and met with someone who I won't get into exactly what it was and everything like that, but it was having to do with a case. And I remember looking at the person and thinking, there is something so bad wrong with this person. Like there's something so wrong. Like you could just feel it. Like there's like certain people out there that there's literally something so bad wrong with them that you can literally just feel it by being in their presence. And it was like something like the only way to describe it is evil. But I've rarely come across anybody that you just walk up to them and you just know that something's evil or something's wrong, like right off the bat like that. And I don't know what causes that, but it's some people it really does exist.
Yeah, man. I mean, like that's you can really tell. Like, and also Matthew's right. Some people just have it give you a bad feeling. Like you get around them and you're like, this person isn't right. Sometimes it's really easy to get. Other times it's more nuanced and it's just a feeling that you get. And I got to be honest with y'all. At least as far like I got to give Matthew huge credit on this. Whenever Matthew says there's something off about someone and they're giving him a bad feeling, he's like right. I think like 90% of the time, it's like overwhelmingly correct. And I have a little bit of a rougher time with that. It takes me a little bit longer to come to the same conclusion, but Matthew can come up with that within about an hour of meeting someone. And at least at the times that I always tell him, nah, you're looking into it too much. He usually ended up being right pretty much most of the times. So he's actually pretty good on reading people. Me, I will read them eventually, but it might take me a good bit longer sometimes to be able to read that person and go, they're no good. But that's a fairly interesting thing. Matthew's got a pretty good handle on that.
Well, thank you. But also, by the way, someone said hot dog man. Interestingly enough, I'm not like trying to brag or something like that. I'm just saying this is a fact. I had literally seen Hot Dog Man for 5 minutes. Seen Hot Dog Man for 5 minutes. I was like, I didn't know anything about the guy. I'll be honest with you. I had no clue who he was. Didn't know anything about him. I was like, there's something wrong with this guy. Like, there's something wrong. And it was the way he was speaking. It was the way he was acting. And I think it was like some video where he was talking to somebody. I was like, something is off with this guy. Like, I'm not sure what's off with him, but something's off with him. And sure enough, we see how that went. That guy's a loon, crazy. He's clearly got a lot of issues going on, a lot of issues.
But I mean, that ain't a bragging right, man. Anyone can look at that guy and see that he's an idiot.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, yeah. Honestly, though, a lot of people didn't, though. 'Cause, I mean, look at all the people that got burned by him. Like all the other YouTubers have gotten burned by that lunatic. They didn't see it. Like
Man.
they found out later, but they didn't see it to begin with.
Man, you know why they sided with him, man. It wasn't because they thought he was a good guy or anything. They just wanted, like, some of those people just wanted to take a shot at us, and that's the only reason they went with that guy. Because anyone on the planet could see that that guy is absolutely raving insane. Like, the only people who ever stuck around with him were the raving insane, and they didn't even last that long. The other people were doing that because, it's the enforcers. They're the young kids who do the voices. So let's beat up on those idiots. So like that was really the approach that some of them took, and that's why they sided with them.
Yeah, yeah. Also, by the way, I'm going to go ahead and read off another super chat. Drops Trades LLC put in a 10. He said, dogs will tell you if someone's off. That is actually
Oh
true. I've
yeah.
seen that before. I have seen that. Dogs are extremely good, even though they can't speak. They're extremely good at telling you if someone is bad or not. If they're giving off some bad like presence about them or something, dogs will naturally be extremely skittish of people that are generally not the best-hearted type people. They'll be very skittish of them. I don't know how dogs do that or how they pick up on it, but I've seen just from my experience that they seem to pick up on stuff fast like that.
Yeah, they really do. I mean, dogs, like, honestly, if you want to know a lot about someone, bring a dog around them, because the dog will, like, somehow dogs are better at reading people than most people are. So you can really get a good read on someone with a dog. Like, that's not a wives' tale. Just from seeing how dogs interact with sketchy people, like, they kind of just know. Like, if someone's kind of a little bit sociopathic and finds like enjoyment in like hurting animals, somehow the dog will know it on the first contact with that person without ever physically witnessing them harming an animal or anything like that. They have like a very good innate sense of knowing, which I find very interesting about dogs, and I just wonder why in the world they have that kind of discernment. I guess it's something that they've just learned after being around people for thousands of years, and they just have a really good clock in their head on being able to pretty much like read a person pretty much right off the bat. I assume.
Do you
I
think
don't
it's a
know.
smell? Because they're obviously dogs' noses are extremely sensitive, way more than a human's nose. Do you think maybe they're smelling or detecting like chemicals off of people or something? Because certain people give off certain chemicals. Like I'm not sure what the right word is for the chemicals, but some people give off bad chemicals. I guess you could say maybe the dogs are smelling or sensing that, and that's what they're going off of.
I mean, maybe. I mean, maybe they're good. Maybe they have like a bred in like knowledge of body posturing and language, like very good understanding of body language of people. Maybe they got that. I really don't know what would lead them to be good at reading people. It's a mystery to me, but I could probably come up with a million different answers possibly as to why they're good at reading people. Maybe it's a mix of it all. Maybe they can smell, maybe they can read the body language, maybe they can do all that, and that's what makes them such masters at reading people. Some
Now,
dogs though.
I always get dogs running up to me, like literally wherever I go. Like at our last place where we came from in Alabama, there was a bunch of dogs. Like pretty much everybody had a dog in the neighborhood where we came from before we moved out here. I was literally anytime I would go walking around the place, literally getting mauled by dogs 24/7 that were just loose. Because for whatever reason, the people wouldn't put the dogs on a leash. They just let their dog loose, which was technically not even they were supposed to keep them on a leash, but they didn't. So every time I'd go walking, it was like getting mauled by like 1,000 dogs running up and jumping on you or something like that. Now, I've only had one dog, like in the history of like Enforcer Matt. I've only had one dog that's actually been bad, and it was a dog in the backwoods of Mississippi, a little small dog, little mean like ankle biter or something. It was this little small dog. I remember I went with my mother out to my grandmother's place in Mississippi, got out of the car, and this little dog was like the devil dog. This thing came out of nowhere, like out of the bushes or something, and came running out. It was biting. I remember it bit me actually. It bit me on the back of the ankle, and it was as mean as hell. Like nobody could get that thing away from me for whatever reason. I don't even know what was wrong with that thing. But that's the only bad experience I've ever had with a dog was that one.
Man, which one of us was the one that locked the other out of the minivan and we were having to run around it? Was that you or me?
I can't. I think I think I might actually locked you out of the minivan. To be
I
honest,
think you did,
but the
man. I
dog was
just had to
attacking
keep
me
running
though, so
around
it
the
was okay
damn.
to lock you out.
But man, that thing kept chasing me around that damn minivan. And I ran like 5 laps around that thing before Mama grabbed me up off the ground. We were like really little kids when that happened. But you're also forgetting, Matthew, that Great Dane that was on our old street.
Now I took care of that one. I didn't do anything to it, by the way. To make that
Bro, that
clear.
sounded bad. I was like,
That
hey,
came
hold
out
up.
bad. That came out really bad. And what I mean is, like, I stood my ground against the thing, and it took back. Like, I didn't do anything to the dog. I went out here, like being like the Homeland Security people or nothing like that. I wasn't doing nothing like that.
Man, I'll be honest with you, man. That Great Dane was a rough one, but that damn little dachshund, man, and it was so stupid because the whole thing happened because our grandmom was trying to go to a place to get some green beans. So we went to these people's house that she knew that had a green bean farm pretty much going on in their backyard. It was really more of a garden. But we went to go get them, and that little bastard dachshund came running out of that bush, Matthew, right under the steps, like into their house. You remember that they had like the porch and the steps? There was the bushes, and that little bastard came running out right from those bushes, like just 10 feet away from us, and we started running around that minivan, and then you hopped in that door and closed it on me, and I was like, what the hell? And I kept running around around the minivan. Honestly, that was hilarious when I think back about it, but it was terrifying at the time. I was bawling terribly by the time my mom had picked me up because Matthew wouldn't open the damn door and let me in, so I had to just keep running from this dog around the car.
I'll be honest with you, I was having a meltdown though inside that car. It wasn't like I was just in there like looking out the window like in glee that you're being chased or something like that. Honestly, I think I jumped in there and just had a breakdown basically after getting chased by that little dog.
I'm not gonna lie.
Also, by the way, it was like this was like 12, 15 years ago or something like that. I don't even know how young. I think I was like 7 or 8 years old when this happened. So I mean, it was young. I wasn't exactly what you'd call like a savior of people against dogs or something like that at that point. I was like barely able to open the door.
I'll tell you this though. I was a very little kid at that point, but I learned this. I didn't even know what the movie Cujo was, but I knew if I ever ended up in the movie Cujo with Matthew, my ass was going to be the first to die. Like, he was going to get in that car, lock that thing. I was going to be left out there with a Cujo killer dog. But anyways, with that, folks, enough of the old stories about the old folks back at home and everything and what was going on back there. That was honestly a pretty funny story, though. But with that, we are on to the next one.
All right, and up next, a big shout out to Crispy, who put in a $20 support, and thank you very much, Crispy, for that $20 support, and also helping to keep the channel running yet again. And thank you very much for the multiple super chats tonight. And Enforcer, what say you?
And a huge thanks to you once again for the support, Crispy. We love to see it, and I thank you massively for being an old guard and a channel legend. And so a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Robert Krogan, who puts in a 5 and said, good evening to the LSA.
And good evening to you, and the whole of the LSA. I hope you have all been doing well tonight. All 7.2 thousand of y'all who are still here. So huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Bennett Martinez, who puts in a 5. And Bennett said, do you two believe in dual citizenship or America first and LSA? And honestly, Bennett, it's totally legal to have dual citizenship, so I don't have a problem with it for that reason alone. It's totally legal. But Enforcer, what say you?
I would agree with that. But at the same time, while someone may be a dual citizen, their duty and loyalty lies to the United States first and foremost, and their allegiance is to the Republic, not to any other country. I'm completely fine with people having dual citizenship, whether they're a citizen of the U.S. and Mexico, or the U.S. and Canada, or the U.S. and Britain, and so on and so forth. But the problem that I have is that when the dual citizens take it upon themselves to peddle the loyalty of the other country they don't even live in first and foremost, rather than the Republic, that's where I find the issue. And I've known dual citizens that put the United States first and foremost, and I've also known other dual citizens who put their other country first and foremost. There was these people that we knew in Birmingham that were actually, like, I won't get into a lot of detail about them, but they were actually Lebanese, and they would talk absolute garbage about Lebanon and how bad it was and how it wasn't a great place anymore. But at the same time, whenever it came to making formulating an opinion or anything, they would put Lebanon first and foremost, and they would throw the U.S. under the bus every single time. It was without fail. And I find that absolutely ridiculous. This is like, you flee the country, and you're still a citizen of Lebanon, and you live in America, and you reap the benefits of our republic and the way it is and how things are, but when push comes to shove, you'll throw the U.S. under the bus, and you'll back up the country that you can't even live in, because if you live there, they chop your head off. It's like, that is really stupid to me that someone would have that kind of a mindset. Because if I was a dual citizen, I would still put my loyalties to the Republic before any other nation. I live here. This is my home. And for that reason alone, that has to be put ahead of everything else. But we actually have breaking news coming out at this very moment. So, Matthew, what do we got?
All right. So believe it or not, we are actually usually at the point where we round the stream out, but we have breaking news right this second. This news is coming out of the Middle East, and it looks like we've got a pretty decently big situation happening right now. Not sure exactly what's happening, but around the area in the Arabian Sea near the Strait of Hormuz, right now there is something happening there. It looks like the UK Office of Maritime Trade Operations is reporting an incident in that area, about 20 nautical miles off the coast of Khor Fakkan in the UAE. It looks like it's happening right here off to the right of this peninsula. If you go look to the right here, it's somewhere over here in the water. That's actually the left right there. Go to the right. Over here, we're looking in that area where your mouse cursor is at. Something there has happened. It looks like the U.S. Navy has actually sent in a drone, which is unusual. A MQ-4C Triton high-altitude surveillance drone is flying over the site right now. You see it on Flight Radar 24. And apparently the U.S. Navy is involved in this and whatever's happening. So Not really sure if a Navy vessel has gotten caught up in something or been attacked, but something big is happening, though, because we don't usually see the U.S. Navy deploying drones to see what's happening with a naval attack like that, unless it involves the U.S. Navy. But Enforcer, what can you tell us?
That's interesting. We actually know, based off of our prior news coverage, that this area near the Corsican is usually an anchorage for vessels that are waiting to transit the Strait of Hormuz and are waiting for their ticket to be called up to be able to conduct that passage. We've seen a fire actually break out here months ago in the past, and I believe that that fire was actually some sort of a incident on ship due to some lack of a proper protocol being followed. I forgot exactly the story behind it, but this may be a possible Iranian attack against a commercial tanker within the area, or it may be another similar incident to the one prior where it was a maritime incident where there was some sort of a protocol that was not followed and it led to a shipborne fire. We're not really sure which at the moment, and there's a million different things that it could be as well. But I would doubt, at least for the moment, that it would be an attack on the U.S. Navy, because an Arleigh-Burke-class destroyer, and even a littoral combat ship, which would have a little bit more of a reduction of its firepower abilities, should be able to defend itself sufficiently from a possible anti-ship attack to be able to get out of the area in time, or at least call on further U.S. assets to help them while they're under attack. So I would doubt that it would be the U.S. Navy under attack, but it sounds like it may be some sort of a civilian tanker that has had an incident within the area.
Possibly so. I'm trying to get some more information here. It looks like it was reported by a company security officer. So that would seem to suggest it is a commercial vessel of some sort, since it was reported by a company security officer. It happened, let's see here. So it just happened apparently less than 30 or 40 minutes ago. So the report is suspicious activity. That's the official report. And obviously that doesn't tell us very much. But the fact that a MQ-4C Triton is over the site, that's the part that makes me wonder what's happening with it, because we don't usually see that. And it looks like this drone has been in the air for about, it looks like almost the exact same time that this incident has started happening, actually. So whatever is happening, show us what is also bordering it, by the way. Bandar Abbas is obviously right there across the water, but zoom out a little bit and let's see exactly where this is in relation to the other country here.
So Bandar Abbas would be about 110 miles away, but at the same time, if we're looking at this UKMTO warning, this is actually near to the Iranian coast, near to the smaller town of en-masse and Mongeli, but it's in a fairly isolated region. There's not a huge population here.
Yeah, it's just I don't know if Iran would be stupid enough to attack a boat at this time, considering that they're having such domestic tumult right now because of the water crisis. But you never really can tell with this situation. So I guess we'll have to find out tomorrow, I guess.
One thing I will say, though, is that the UK MTO warning is coming out from this general area near to Corsican, but it's actually more so closer to Iran than Corsican. I actually have the marine traffic map here, and we can actually see that within that specific area where this warning has been issued, there's a large anchorage of stationary vessels that are awaiting transit through the Strait of Hormuz. So it appears that whatever incident has happened, it's a high likelihood that it's very similar to the prior incident that happened right off the coast here at this anchorage near Corsican, where an oil tanker caught on fire. And I forgot the exact reason after the investigation that they claimed the vessel caught on fire for, but it had nothing to do with Iranian militant activities. So this may be a similar sort of an incident that we're seeing in the anchorage that's more so central in the opening of the Strait of Hormuz. It's possible, but we'll have to wait and see, because, we're still having to work off of common deduction at this point rather than hard facts. So we will see what the Navy announces tomorrow in the morning, or at least the local authorities will announce by that point. So with that, I hope that does address that well. And we are on to the next one. Also, Mandy, how many questions in Super Chats do we have left?
We have 9.
Oh, well, with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Guille Soler, who puts in a $91, or excuse me, I don't know why I'm saying $91 support. His name is 91, and he puts in a 5. And he said, "Good night, folks, and greetings from Spain, and thank you for all the up-to-date info and the news refuses to cover, and keep up the good work."
Hey, and a big hello to Spain, and it's good to know that you're watching. I got to thank you so much for being one of our Spanish viewers in the Lee Spring Army, and thank you so much for watching. And I hope you have a good, actually, I think it's the morning almost over there, but I hope you have a good morning and the rest of your day, as a matter of fact. So a huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Euro, who puts in a 5, and it said, "Russia is toasty and LSA."
Oh yeah, they are really toasty today, especially down in Novorossiysk. They're cooking. But a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 5 from Wide Left Productions, who said, can Europe and the USA make flamingos on large industrial base and sell them cheaply to Ukraine?
We possibly could. I actually think that they would end up costing a little bit more because we would have to get the manpower, the tooling, and the factories up to be able to make those missiles, which the Ukrainians have at least some number of. We would have to make it from scratch or get copies of the tooling from the Ukrainians. So if we could do it eventually, if we really ramped it up and conducted an economy of scale where we just mass produced them, we could make them cheap. But I don't really know if we would be willing to do that. I think we would probably just give them more tested platforms that we already have the tooling and knowledge to be able to create, like the Tomahawks. So with that, I hope that is addressed to the best I can. A big thanks to you once again for support and help with this channel to keep running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $5 super chat from Sundown, who said, I appreciate you guys, and I'm about to go on deployment into South China Sea. Oh, wow. And also U.S. Navy and LSA.
Hey, and a big shout out to the folks and sailors of the U.S. Navy. Y'all do amazing work out there on the world's oceans. Not just a singular ocean like the Chinese, but the world's oceans. And I got to say that I hope that your deployment is safe in the South China Sea, and I got to thank you greatly for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And a huge shout out and respect to all of the members of the armed forces who are currently serving. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to John Omaz, who puts in a 5 and said, I don't gamble. I prefer to give my money away like this.
Hey, and I thank you so much for the support, because at least when you throw away your money like this, if we want to put it that way, at least you get a show out of it. With gambling, you might get nothing, you know, like sometimes you just bust. Well, that sounded very wrong. Sometimes you just that was
Oh, yeah, hey, yo.
hey yo, hold up. But sometimes you just go bust on the well, that sounds even bad too. Sometimes you just don't get anything back from the gambling machine. So let's just leave it at that. But still, a big thanks to you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one goes to LJ Green, who puts in a 5 and said, 3-Eye Atlas? Aliens? Do you believe Sean Duffy? Sean Duffy? Is that the Fox News fellow? Like, if I'm not mistaken, but he said NASA administrator and transportation secretary. Okay, yeah, okay. I didn't do that as like a diss, by the way. I legit forgot for a second. But they said, why not release the October 2nd photos and explain coma facing towards?
Hold up, this guy looks to have been on some television show as a presenter.
He was on Fox.
Yeah. Why the hell is everyone in the cabinet, like, mostly from Fox? Anyways, beyond that, well, yeah, we both know the answer to that question. That was a rhetorical one, honestly. But beyond that, I would have to say, I haven't really listened to his statements a lot to really make an opinion on him, unfortunately. But I do thank you so much for the support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Margaret Hemsley, who puts in an 8 Australian. And thank you very much, Margaret, for that support, by the way. And we do appreciate that. And it's good to see you. And Margaret said, good day, boys. And I think of you as part of my family, truly. And you keep me company while I recuperate from hip replacement. And take a live chat question, please.
And thank you so much for the kind words, Margaret Hemsley, all the way from Western Australia. And we got to thank you massively so much for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. It's good to know that we're helping you to keep company and pass the time while you recuperate, really, from the hip replacement. And we will make sure to take a live chat in your honor. So, Matthew, what do we got?
And the live chat question in honor of Margaret Hemsley goes to Draco, who said, do you guys think a major war will break out worldwide?
It's getting there. We used to say that it was absolutely impossible years ago. Well, not even years ago, really just a year ago. But with how things are going these days, it's becoming a lot more of a likelihood that that can happen. I don't want to say it's guaranteed certainty, but it's getting a lot more likely. I'll put it that way, so that way it's not, hedging our bets on, oh, it's guaranteed. I don't want to sound like a soothsayer. It just looks like it's more likely now than ever. But with that, I hope that has addressed the live chat the best we can. And a huge thanks to you for the support, Margaret Hemsley. And we hope that you get well soon. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Aquanaut, who puts in a 5. And thank you very much, Aquanaut. And he said, great work, fellas.
Hey, and thank you so much for enjoying our great work. And thank you so much for supporting and helping to keep on running. Because folks like you help to make this channel possible each and every single day. And we're greatly appreciative that you enjoy the channel enough that you would want to support it to help us to keep the thing running. And so a huge thanks to you so much once again. And we are on to the next one.
And up next, a huge shout out to Jake, by the way, just threw a 120
Hey!
Canadian. And thank you very much, Jake, for that humongous support right there, all the way from Canada. And we do sincerely appreciate that very, very much. He is putting that toward the Keeping the Lights On Fund. And Jake said, "Thank you, gentlemen. You provide a fantastic service, and you put traditional news media to shame with the top notch information you provide, and keep up the great work."
And thank you so much for the support, Jake, all the way from Canada. In days of yore, from Britain shore. I mean, sorry, that's the old anthem. Sorry, the modern one's the "Oh Canada" one. I don't know why I was doing the old one, but beyond that, I do thank you so much for the support all the way up there from Canada. And also, my singing is not great. But beyond that, I gotta say, thank you so much for the kind words and the high praise. Because we try our best to put traditional media to shame, and I think that we do. Especially a lot of the American networks like Fox and CNN. I don't really think it takes a lot to put them to shame, but I'm glad to know that we do. And I got to thank you so much for the kind words and the massive support, because folks like you are helping us to make this channel possible, to where we can run this news each and every day and continue to put them to shame. So a humongous thanks to you so much once again. We are massively appreciative of your enjoyment of the channel and your incredible support to help us to keep this thing rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $31 support, Australian support from Kai Foley. And thank you very much, Kai, for that 30
Hey!
Australian right there. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And they said, "Money doesn't seem like the most important thing in my life anymore, and hope it helps," from WA Australia.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support all the way from Western Australia. A really big part of Australia, actually. I think it is the biggest province within Australia by a landmass, but I still got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling, because folks like you are making this thing possible day in and day out. So humongous thanks once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we also have a $10 support from Taoist Auditor. And they said, "LSA, and what is the U.S. doing to defend our interests in the Pacific? And with Chinese influence and possible annexation of the islands, we don't want a Japanese World War II situation."
It's a really hard one to answer, Taoist Auditor, because in the past, over the past 10, 15 years, really, we've been working on something called the Island Defense Chain, which is a series of countries that are allied to the United States, or at least aligned with the United States, like South Korea, Japan, Taiwan, the Philippines, and Malaysia, to be able to effectively create a pen around the Chinese where they really can't leave, at least for their navy, which is the most important part that we have to contain. And that's been our going strategy, at least for the past 10 years. Nowadays, it seems a little bit more up in the air, to some degree, whether the island defense chain is going to be a strategy that we continue to implement into the future. We may abandon it at some point, possibly, which would be a massive mistake if we give up on defending Taiwan, because if we lose Taiwan, the whole defense chain is meaningless at that point. The actual keystone of it has been lost. So generally, that's what we've been doing for the past 10 to 15 years, and that really is the best thing that we can do. We can also improve the U.S. Navy's abilities by modernizing the fleet and introducing new classes of vessels, such as destroyers and cruisers, that would have significant amounts of firepower. And we could also greatly enhance the merchant marine and our sea lift capabilities to ensure that the supply volume of munitions and basic necessities to keep the armed forces rolling and fighting, or really sailing and fighting over there, would be able to continue well on into a large conflict with China, considering that the U.S.'s supply lines are going to be thousands of miles across the Pacific, and China's supply lines at that point would only be, at best, a few hundred miles towards the coastlines of Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, the Philippines, Malaysia, and so on. So I hope that does address it the best I can, at least in my opinion, from what I know. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next super chat goes to Drops Trades LLC once again, who puts in a 10. And thank you very much for that support, by the way. He said Costco Chicken Fund, LOL.
And thank you for the Costco Chicken Fund. We love Costco chicken. It is juicy, tender, succulent. It's great. It's the best chicken out there, really, in my opinion. And I gotta thank you incredibly for supporting this channel and helping us to continue to get that wondrous Costco chicken. That will actually get us 2 whole Costco chickens. That is very generous of you, and I thank you greatly for that. And so with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Crispy yet again. And Crispy throws in a $10 support yet again. And thank you very much, Crispy, for that 10 once more. And Enforcer, what say you?
And I got to thank you massively for the support once again, Crispy, because you are helping this channel to stay alive and rolling. So huge thanks to you once again. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Jeremy Vahill, who puts in a 5. He said, today I watched your live stream to flex on the Russians who don't have electricity.
That's actually pretty
Damn.
good. Man, that actually goes hard. But I got to thank you massively for the support and helping this channel to keep it running. I got to say, really flexing on them, honestly. Odd flex, but okay. But with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Gary Tour, who puts in a 3 and said, now that you're in SLC, when's your first ski trip? Honestly,
Soon.
Gary, I spoke to somebody about that yesterday. I did not know that skiing was as expensive as it is. I did not know that before we got out here. Somebody told me it was like $180 for like a pass for a day or something, and then you got to rent the gear. I was like, oh, I didn't know that. That's pretty steep. I thought maybe it was like, $20 and you go skiing or something like that. I didn't know it was like big time money into skiing like that. So we'll have to try it maybe once, every once in a blue moon or something like that. But it seems like there ought to be somewhere to go skiing that you don't have to like go pay a whole bunch of money to go skiing though. It's like, is there not somewhere else you can go to go ski?
There is a place you can go.
Where's that?
You could just go into the wilds, but you might end up falling into one of those snow wells near the trees and dying from suffocation. So, it's a bit of a trade-off there. There's a lot of risk involved. And I mean a load of risk. Crazily enough, that actually happens a lot to the people who do pretty much like the free-range skiing that isn't on a ski slope. A decent amount of people end up dying by falling in snow wells near trees or falling off of cliffs or traveling into an unmapped area and then getting lost or getting injured. That actually happens a great deal, crazily enough. So that's generally why it's expensive, is because they maintain the slopes and they also maintain all of the ski equipment. And that actually, I looked into it. It's actually a pretty expensive sort of a business to get into, and the margins are still kind of a little bit narrow, even with the cost that's involved, interestingly enough.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I just don't understand why it's so expensive personally. I just don't get it.
Oh man, I would like it's the cleaning of all the clothes. They have to clean all of the clothes because people sweat a lot in that ski gear, so they have to wash it after each person uses it. So a lot of washing involved. They also have to maintain the slopes, so they have to smooth the snow, which costs a decent amount for the machinery. They have to maintain the buildings. The heating costs are usually quite high, especially because it's during the on season and it's incredibly cold in those areas. And then also another interesting thing is that I believe, if I remember correctly from what I was looking into, they have to pay some sort of a fee. Like usually a lot of them like lease the area that they're in, so they have to pay like a leasing fee every year or some sort of a fee like that. And then that also adds a lot to the cost too.
Huh, that's kind of crazy, honestly. I don't know. That seems like a lot of money. And also, it seems like your odds of getting injured are pretty high if you don't know what you're doing. Because I was hearing some stories about people, busting their bones and stuff like that and everything because they weren't sure what they were doing. So it'll be interesting to try. Like I'll definitely try it once, but you can't make a habit out of doing something like that if it costs that kind of money. You'll go broke.
Oh yeah, you got to be like a millionaire to go skiing, honestly. So we might do it like once or twice, but just for our wallet's sake, we wouldn't be able to do it a whole deal. But still, I hope that does address that well. A huge thanks to you once again for support and helping this channel to keep on running. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And this one goes to Crispy yet again. He threw in another $10 support. And a huge shout out to you, Crispy, for I believe that is the 6th or 7th super chat of the night. And we do appreciate that very, very much. And we also have a 2 from Jim Williams and Plazoth, who each put in a $2 support without the comments. But thank you very much to the both of you, Jim and Plazoth, as well, for that support. And we also have a 2 from Secret Squirrel, who said for acorn catapults.
Hey, and I love the squirrel super chats. A huge thanks to you for the support and helping this channel to keep rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And we have a 2 from FIFA King, and they said, I love them Flamingo hits and good work on the news, gents.
Hey, and thank you so much for the support. And we love the Flamingo hits too. They really did some work tonight with those. But a huge thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And we also have a 2 from Ashley Redmond, who said, thank you both for all you do, and LSA.
And a big thanks to you for supporting us and helping us to keep doing what we do. So massive thanks to you once again, and we are on to the next one.
And with that, folks, that is actually our last super chat right there. So it is now time to jump into our live chat questions proper and grab some live chats. But first, our Morse code decoders tonight, we had Paul Schultz, Kevin J, Mason Miami, Joni Dog, Norm Pritchett, Arabel Garbo, Her Royal Fluffiness, Kush Kobe, Derek Sire, and Brian Blairstown. And they said the Morse code says, Ukraine was not playing games today with that attack on Novorossiysk and LOT, LSA.
And That's the sound of money, and y'all got that dead on the nail. That is the Morse code message of the night. I gotta congratulate y'all greatly for getting that Morse code message correct time and time again, because folks like y'all have always been making sure to get that Morse code message correct since day 80 of the war. So a big congrats to y'all so much once again. And with that, we have one more super chat to address. After that, we're actually going to be instilling a super chat cutoff. So any super chats put in beyond Aquanaut 6406's will unfortunately not be read off. So if you'd like to support the channel and have your super chat read off, make sure to throw in a super chat tomorrow when we go live again. But after we address this last super chat, we're going to be getting into 3 live chats due to us being extremely overtime, and then we're going to be rounding out the stream for the night. And so with that, Matthew, what do we got?
And Aquanaut put in a 5 and said 2 Bobcats today, boys, and what a day.
And what a day indeed. And I got to thank you so much for the support, Aquanaut, and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the next one.
And our next one is going to go to none other than TS Actual, who said, will kinetic strikes on Venezuela and or troop movements, will they be given a new operation name?
It appears that it's going to be Operation Southern Spear, from what we understand. It's going to be a larger part of that, because the mission parameters of Operation Southern Spear, at least by the public announcement, appear to heavily weigh in line with some sort of military action against Venezuela directly. So I have a feeling it'll be under that operational name. Also, a huge shout out to Crispy for the 10th super chat tonight, according to YouTube. A huge thanks to you so much once again for the support and helping this channel to keep on rolling. And with that, we are on to the second to last question of the night.
And this one goes to none other than the Acid Brush, who said, when will U.S. implement when will the U.S. implement U.S. conscription?
I think that the United States would begin conscription if we went into a major ground war with the Russians, or if we went into a major war with the Chinese, or both at the same time. I think that's the only time in the modern day that we would enact a conscription, in my personal opinion. I might be wrong with that, though. But with that, I hope that does address it the best we can. And with that, we are on to the final question of the night. And so, who is lucky last person to throw in the lucky last question of the night?
And that viewer is going to be none other than Meta, who said, did Russia respond the other day when the U.S. swept close with the B-52s?
We haven't seen them respond yet. Some people are saying that the intelligence ship is the response. I would doubt that, because that ship has been underway at sea for weeks to make it to Hawaii, so it wouldn't really line up with being a direct response to the B-52 flights. At the moment, we haven't seen a direct response yet from the Russians near to the NATO border, which is what I'm looking to see, because we're looking for something of an analogous response to show that they're directly responding to it. And right now, we have not seen that. So generally, it looks like they're not responding to it at all, or they might have not responded to it yet, and we might see a response here within the next few days. So I hope that does address that the best we can, and we have reached the end of tonight's stream. I've got to thank each and every single one of y'all for enjoying this stream tonight, and of course, helping this channel to keep on running. A huge amount of people were here tonight. We had nearly 15,000 people here live. We were only just 200 short, and we also had 100,000 people watch the stream before it ended. We're entirely honored and greatly appreciative of so many of y'all enjoying the show tonight, and we hope that once again y'all have gotten your fill of news for the day. We will be seeing you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern Time to cover the next 24 hours of news from around the world, and if there is enough news to be able to make a short war video tomorrow, I, the Enforcer, will be the one putting out that short war video for all of y'all. And so with that, we will see you all tomorrow, either for the stream or the short war video. And so with that, good night, good luck, take care, stay safe, Slava Ukraini, Haram Slava, and of course, long live the Lee Spring Army, and long live the Republic.
And with that, folks, thank you all for joining us once again tonight. And we do appreciate every single one of you that were here by the end of the stream. And we will see you all tomorrow at 10 p.m. Eastern on the next Nightly War News stream. And also, we will be seeing as well the short war video in the middle of the day. And once again, we thank you all for joining us. And of course, Slava Ukraine, Herom Slava, get some rest, and good night.